Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Goober Brothers Entertainment. Today is April 24th, and I am so tired. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Quaranstream 5.
How's it
So,
going?
it's kind of cool to have 5 corn streams under our belt.
Yeah, I that's a very positive way to look at the stream and quarantine stuff
Yeah.
right now. Definitely.
And if we weren't so
Yeah.
busy, we'd be having about 10 of them knocked out. But how's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Today with me is my guest. If I can fucking talk, the coffee hasn't hit in yet. We got Thomas from So What Happens Next. What's going on, man?
Hey man, how's it going, everybody?
So, guys, there's a lot of Star Wars news out there, more negative than positive. And I don't know if you saw one of the ladies that is developing a Star Wars series is basically going to be like making yet another female led Star Wars series on Disney Plus, and she has like no credibility to her, and she also used to be Harvey Weinstein's assistant. So
Well, I thought she was the woman that did that Russian doll TV show. I
she
thought it was,
did,
or is this something separate? Okay,
she
I've
did,
not
yeah.
watched that show. I've heard it was very good, but I haven't watched it. But it's my understanding it's more like a dark humor show. So that's kind of interesting of what we're gonna do with Star Wars, since humor hasn't exactly been the strongest point in at least the new ones.
She's like a straight up feminist, and she I guess she's been deleting a lot of tweets that she's put out over the years. So
I
it's
mean,
one of those
when
people that's like, all right, well, you say some kind of batshit crazy things, and okay, well, I mean, 10 years ago is 10 years ago, but if it's like somewhat recent and you're just trying to cover it up to make it look good,
well,
get
I
the
also
fuck away
wouldn't be
from Star Wars.
surprised. I mean, to play devil's advocate, one, I'd probably do the same thing too if I was famous and had a Twitter account that was any kind of recent, just because it's so you're dealing with that culture, right? Where it's like you have people like James Gunn who said something 10 years ago, changed since then, and it's like people still trash him for it. So it's,
Yeah, the
even the
thing is,
gambit of even having those things, it's like a record. I
that's
would
fine. It's one thing if it's like 10, 20, 30 years ago. It's like, okay, just fucking let it go. And if it's like somewhat recent, like that's different. Like
I wouldn't be surprised though.
that's gonna show like your true character though.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Disney making her scrub it. Like I have no doubt in my mind that Disney is like not taking any chances, especially after the James Gunn thing
Well, she used to
and
be
the
Harvey
backfire
Weinstein's
of that.
assistant.
Right, which is even more of like a because you're dealing with now like, okay, yeah, he's a terrible person, she's a woman that had to deal with a terrible person, but what kind of things did she have to do to keep her job?
Well,
That
what
dude was
things does she
big,
want to do
right?
to keep her job? Because you don't have to. You can just be like, all right, see ya.
Nah, dude, in that business, like he can ruin your life though. Like that's what I'm saying. Is not to get too much into it, but it's like somebody like that has a lot of power over you. If you're just starting out as an assistant, he can get another assistant and you're screwed because he blacklists you from everything.
Nah. I mean, you could have just straight up been like, yeah, he fucking does all this stuff. She could have said something. Just like a lot of those celebrities, they could have said something, but they never did. They never chose to. So it's like, okay, well, cool. Good for you.
Yeah.
Proud of you guys. I mean, that. Wow. Hashtag me too, right?
Yeah. Well, we don't gotta get into it.
Yeah.
Um,
But, anyways,
yeah.
Star Wars. How about that? Star Wars, Thomas.
I'm okay with so are you caught up on Clone Wars?
I
Are you
haven't.
there yet?
Yeah, I'm caught up. I haven't watched the new episode that dropped today.
Neither have I, so that's fine.
Okay, I watched it. Got caught up last night.
Yeah.
So
It's
so
like really, I don't know. It is a very up and down show for sure. Like I liked the first arc that they went through with the what are they called? Bad Batch people.
yeah,
Like that was actually kind of cool because it's like, hey, this guy's not dead, and they have him like wired to a machine that's like figuring out all the stuff the
yeah,
clones are doing. But then I think
yeah.
it just kind of falls off.
If I watch that like arc, it's like okay, this actually ain't bad. Not my favorite, not my favorite,
No,
but
no,
it's
no,
not
no, no.
bad. And then once I watch like the Ahsoka episodes, and then you go back to the Bad Batch, and you're like, the Bad Batch is fucking great.
Agreed. Like, and that's the
Yeah,
thing that kind of sucked is like the new ones, you know, like the I'm sorry, not the new ones, but those ones with Ahsoka and whatever sisters, the two sisters. It's
yeah,
very like,
terrible.
well, it's just like it's the Ahsoka's character and push her to ultimately do the what's it called thing, the Mandalore thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like these two characters do a lot of really cringy shit that was really irritating me, and I'm kind of just like it's almost unrealistic how her character isn't like you guys are fucking morons, just like shut up and don't do that. Um but I guess that's that Jedi patience or something like that, you know?
Well, sorry, I'm eating fucking food. I shouldn't be doing this live, but whatever. But no, like they give Ahsoka so much shit during this episode.
Right.
Like, oh, you grew up on the top of Coruscant. What do you know? We grew
Which
up
is
down here, and
yeah.
we grew up in the hood. We fucking know how to handle our shit. And then they get on the mission, and shit starts hitting the fan. And they're like, "Oh my god!" Ahsoka's like, "Are you serious right now?"
Yeah,
But she doesn't act like that though. She's like,
exactly.
she's like way too understanding about it. It's like, Ahsoka, you've been in war.
Mhm. I
You
think that
are a
that's what should
hardened.
have showed, right? Is
You're
like,
you're a hardened veteran. Like, you know, you chose to leave the Jedi Order. Like, you don't owe anyone anything, especially
right.
after what just happened with
Well, everyone
what's
betrayed
her
her in
face.
a weird way. Like not betrayed her, but didn't believe her, you know?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, you don't owe anyone anything. Like, so what the fuck? Like, she wastes her time with this whole thing, and like they got this whole. Okay, so just a recap of season 7 for everybody that's
Yeah,
just
probably a good
tuning
idea.
in. Not that like if you haven't watched it yet, this is a spoiler alert. So, um, 3. If you don't want to, if you don't want to hear the spoilers or anything, we're gonna be talking about them. So, we'll give you guys time to leave. Do 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 do
I
do
don't think
do.
it takes this long
Life
to click the
day,
end button.
life day, fucking life day.
God, that's a thing.
That's a thing. We need to make our little avatar things the like was it Scrappy or Scratchy or something.
Itchy or some shit.
Itchy and
Itchy.
Scratchy.
No, wait. Itchy's. I think Itchy's the grandpa with his little weird jerk off chair, and then Scratchy or Muggy or Fluffy or whatever the fuck that kid. The kid who can build all that technology. Like, that whole thing was horrible.
Can we please watch that?
Go check out So What Happens Next episode on
Yeah.
the Star Wars Holiday Special, because that's the only time I'm ever gonna watch it. I'm never watching it again. That was horrible.
Go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, guys, and go check out So What Happens Next Star Wars Holiday Special.
And if you really wanna
It's a pretty bad movie.
suffer, if you really wanna suffer through it, we have a commentary on our website at swhn19.com, and you can see why we're never gonna watch it again.
Yeah, there you go. That movie is so terrible.
It's
It's
awful.
it's insulting, yet I would yet I would still watch that over The Last Jedi.
No, I can't. At least The Last Jedi had a coherent plot. That was just things happening that they like. I don't want to go. We don't need to go too much into it unless you want to. But it was just stuff that was like,
Whip,
okay, it's going to be
whip,
a
whip,
variety show.
whip, whip, whip.
It was horrible. I hated it. It was like
I love the
it
I
was
love
just
the
a
training
nightmare.
part where she's like, "All right, we're gonna fucking whip this food," and then
Oh my god, that's right.
The Wookiee's like, "All right, I'm getting into this." You're like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, and everything. The whole movie was like the minute you think you're like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. It's like, no, we're not doing it anymore. Like I remember reading a piece of trivia on there that whole scene with B. Arthur in the cantina where they're like singing the song.
Hmm.
Like apparently those costumes, like people who were in those alien costumes were like passing out. Like it was so hot, and they were like crappily made costumes that they were just passing out because it was completely enclosed and they like couldn't breathe and shit.
I
and
think
they filmed it for so long.
it's the funniest thing because it wasn't like really a Lucasfilm thing. It was its own production, and
Mhm.
they just like took the characters from the movies and they're like, "All right, you're in this now," and they're like, "What?" I
No,
think one
it's
of the
definitely a
funniest
money grab for sure.
I think one of the funniest parts of it, and this is the last thing I'll say about it before we get into the Clone Wars,
Mm,
but when you see the clone or the stormtroopers walking down the staircase to like confront everyone in the house, they're
yeah,
holding the E11 blaster, like the right hand's like on the grip, like how it should be, but the other hand's on the fucking magazine, like on the side.
yeah,
It's not like underneath towards the front, like you would hold a rifle. So they're just
right.
like they're holding it so stupidly, and you're just like, oh my god, this they haven't seen Star Wars or even held a gun at all, have they?
Well, you gotta remember at that point, like, there's only been one.
I
Like,
know,
and
but
it was like a campy nonsense
you
thing,
got a
like,
whole
at the
movie to
time.
watch it though.
But it's like I think it's just it's one of those weird it's fun to well, it's not fun, but it's something to watch in hindsight where it's like we now in the year 2020 have gotten upwards of 12 Star Wars movies in various forms that are live action, and then there's this thing that was like the second Star Wars thing ever made, and it was just kind of like we can critique it like they're holding the gun wrong, but it's like at the time, what direction did they seriously think this shit was gonna go in? I mean, it's outlandish, it's wild as hell, and oh my god, like the Wookiee costumes look like shit except for like Chewbacca's because they clearly just reused it, and just everything about that is just it's a nightmare of a movie or of a TV special, I guess, depending on how you cut it. But it's just so watch it at least once in your life and then never watch it again. You can find it on YouTube for free.
You can
It's
find it on
horrible.
YouTube. You can find it on, I think, Facebook.
I wouldn't be surprised.
You can do like a watch party on Facebook with it, and it's pretty bad. Yeah,
It's absolutely terrible. Like,
we'll
the
do that.
only scenes that make sense are the Han Solo scenes and the overarching plot of Chewbacca trying to get home that they only talk about maybe twice, and the rest of the time is just watching Chewbacca's family be, like, interrogated by the Imperial Gestapo for, like, half an hour. It ugh, god. But the Clone Wars is much better.
It's an acid trip. Oh yeah, the Clone Wars is not an acid trip. The if
No, it's
you
a well done anthology show of Star Wars things.
so let's go ahead and get into it. So
Yeah.
basically, Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Um, to start off with, you watched it in high school as well as I did, and
I think maybe. I
we
remember
got in.
watching it all kind of like as a binge because someone was like, "Oh, it's not just like a kid show. It's like
Yeah, I think
pretty
I got you
good."
into it.
You might have said it, and I was like, "Well, okay, whatever. I'll give it a shot." So I watched it. It was on like Netflix or something. I watched it,
Yeah,
and
I
it
think
is
you might have
totally like
graduated already.
no. I think I know I watched it before that.
Okay, but
I don't
yeah,
remember
like
when it was sometime back
I
then.
remember watching it and I was like, dude, you got to see this. It was like it starts off as like more of a kid show
For
because the
sure.
movie's similar to like the beginning of the show. So if you
Yeah.
watch the movie and then you get into the beginning, like season 1, they're similar. But once season 2 and 3 roll around, you're like, "Oh shit, they're actually starting to do more."
Yeah,
And
I'll
by
admit I didn't watch the movie first. Like, I was kinda confused in the
oh,
beginning because I was like, "Oh, I guess we're just doing this. Like, this is just the story that we're gonna make." Like, I was aware of when the movie came out. I remember it coming out, and I remember it was like, "Anakin's got a Padawan now, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." Like, I don't feel like going to see a cartoon Star Wars movie, and so I didn't. But then I think I know I've watched it by now. I wasn't a fan of it. It wasn't, like, great, but it does act as kind of the first episode to this show, or, like, the first arc to this show, I guess you could say.
yeah, and that's where they introduce Ahsoka as the movie.
Mhm.
So I saw that in theaters with my dad, and I didn't really know what I was getting into because I was like, it's a Clone Wars cartoon. Like, why the hell would I not see it? Because I like the Cartoon Network, the previous one in 2003 when it came out.
No, I remember watching that every day it came out. I remember watching it, and then, like, I remember the day of or the day before the 3rd movie came out is when it ended, and I remember getting super hyped for that.
Dude, it was like that was an experience and a half for all of us kids. Like we were so amped up.
Well, it was just the fact that it ends right where the third movie starts. And at the time, you didn't know that because you haven't, the third one hasn't come out yet. And
Yeah,
like it ends on that. I always remember that it ends on that, like, let's pull out from, I think it's like you pull out from Coruscant and it just all this and all the ships are over the planet and they almost look like stars. Like there's so many of them and you're so far out. And then the third movie just opens where you're in the middle of that battle. And I was like, that is such a cool, like, if you could just cut it all as one thing, that would be really cool. And I'm
yeah.
kind of curious if we're going to get something like that at any point during this final season of Clone Wars, because this is supposed to, new Mandalore arc starts where they get called back to Coruscant, and then
I
we
highly,
follow Ahsoka.
I highly doubt we're gonna see anything else of Anakin and Obi-Wan,
Yeah.
but we'll see. Now I do know that the season out of all of the other ones overall sucks. I mean, the first 4 episodes, you can say what you
Oh.
want about them; they're fine. I like them,
Yeah.
but if we're talking as a whole, very inconsistent. Like
No, and that's what I was saying
season
with the whole peaks
season
and valleys thing.
six,
Yeah.
season six was like the lost episodes, and it was
Mhm.
basically a jumbled mess, but it was a good mess.
Yeah,
Like
they did what they could.
they all made sense,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh, okay, I like this." They got into the whole clone memory chip thing, like that actually got really serious because the
No,
clones were
they
like,
let it go dark. Like,
yeah,
that
because the
was the
clones were
nice
like
thing.
the clones were killing Jedi, but they didn't really know
Mhm.
why they were, and they're like, "Snap out of it!" And he's just like, "I have no idea what's going on." And it was like a
Right.
PTSD moment,
And
and
obviously we have to address that here, right? Because like this, you have like Rex and stuff who's gone to Mandalore with Ahsoka, and then in Rebels we meet him and a handful of other clones who didn't do the Order 66 thing. So like, what's stopping, like, at what point are they taking the chips out, you know?
well, yeah, like that's the thing. We're not gonna see any more Ahsoka Anakin, Ahsoka Obi-Wan,
Mhm.
because during I mean, that is episode 3 right there, them
Right, no,
going to
we're
Coruscant.
on it.
So
That
we're
final arc starts there.
yeah, so we're basically by right now, episode 9 of season 7 in the Clone Wars, we're in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Pretty much, yeah, we've just
You are
started
in it.
the
Yeah,
beginning of it, yeah.
so it's just there's a lot to talk about, but
Mm,
so from the beginning, we get
yeah.
into the show. It's basically a kid show. Anakin gets a Padawan, but he's not like it's not an official Padawan. It's because he's not a Jedi Master. So they basically like stick this little girl. They're like, hey, she needs someone to train her. No one else can train her, and you're young enough. I think you'll get along with her well.
Well, wasn't
Here
the
you go.
argument like Obi-Wan's like, "You should do it, it's really fulfilling," and Anakin's like, "Nah, man, fuck that, I ain't an old guy like you," kinda type. It was like that kind of
Yeah,
mentality.
Anakin. Well, it's more of like a brother sister kind of deal. Like
Well, at the end of it, but
it
what
was
I mean
kind of
is
like
like
one of those
the,
programs. It's like, all right, have you seen role models before?
oh, you mean it's like a big brothers, big sisters type thing, right?
Yeah,
Is that what it's called?
that's the way I
Yeah.
see it. It's like, here you go. Here's this
No,
kid
that's
that
that could be a good way to look at it.
like she doesn't have we don't have time to have like an official master be
Mhm.
assigned to her and have her go through everything. So
Right.
we're gonna have you kind of like just kind of look after her and you know,
Yeah.
she'll go on adventures with you and you show her shit and there you go.
Well, that's kind of a cool thing, like, now that I think about it, Clone Wars is really the first time we see, with the exception of maybe episode 2, where we actually see, like, "Hey, this is what a Padawan does." Like, this is kind of the role they play, and it's not just, "I'm like a puppy and I follow around my master all across the galaxy doing shit." It's like, I do that, but at the same time, there are times where I go and do something with someone else. Because there is, like you mentioned, there are Ahsoka Obi-Wan episodes or Ahsoka Plo Koon episodes, or like
Yeah.
ones where she's not with Anakin all the time. And I get that there might be exceptions because it's like war and shit, but it is kind of cool to see like, hey, this is how it works to be a Padawan. And I'm like, that's kind of neat. Like, it's not just I'm a student and I follow around my teacher all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's how it should be. You shouldn't have to be stuck with like the same master constantly because you're going to be interacting with other Jedi and everything. So you
yeah,
just
I
get
can see
more
it being a
experience
problem
and
if you did
everything,
that for sure. It gets you
especially if
well
you,
rounded and all that.
Yeah, especially if you have these like conjoined missions. So there's missions
Mm-hmm.
where Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Plo Koon, like the four of them, were going to do stuff. Or
Mm-hmm.
you see them with Mace Windu. Like it's pretty cool seeing all the Jedi interact with each other. Like you see Luminora Unduli and Barriss Offee when they're on Geonosis, and the Ahsoka and Barriss get trapped underneath the
Is that the
rocks.
arc with the zombies? Because I really liked that one. That was a cool the scary one. Is that the
Yeah,
what leads into it?
I think so.
Because they find the queen underground, the Queen Geonosian underground, and she's like putting worms in people's brains. I don't know. It
Yeah,
sounds
they
kind of
take.
cheesy when I say it, but it was a. I remember watching it, going like, "Whoa, this is actually kind of scary
Yeah,
for a kid show."
that's when it starts to get really dark because you're just like, oh
Yeah.
shit, she just put these like alien type parasites in people's
Hmm.
heads and she can control them.
Yeah, it's
And they're
like
basically zombies. Like it is unreal. You're like,
pretty
what the
much up until the end. I think they're only when Ahsoka figures it out how to like stop the mind slug things. They're pretty much like, oh, we just got to kill these guys. Like, there's nothing we can do but kill these guys because they're gone. And I'm like, whoa, that's some heavy shit to deal. It does. I noticed like on a rewatch a while ago that the show gets a lot more mature, a lot faster than I remembered. Like, I always thought it got mature in like season 3, but it actually is like halfway through season 2, like beginning of season 2, halfway through season 2, where they start just kind of going, other people, well, let's make this a little bit more of like a variety of themes, and it gets more entertaining because it feels like there's a lot more development. You're not just watching the heroes do the hero thing and they beat up the bad guys. Like the first episode of the show, I think it's Yoda, right? And like it's cool, but at the same time, if that's the whole show, it's going to get a little old, Because at the end, I think it's like Dooku being like, "Darn it, I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for your small green man," and like
fuck?
fucks off the planet or something like that.
Yeah, it was like the first episode was a good like intro because wasn't anything too crazy. It was Yoda with a bunch of ARC troopers. They're
Hmm.
on, I think, Felucia or a
No,
planet
they're on
similar to Felucia.
shit. They're on Watto's planet,
Oh, okay.
whatever that one is.
And yeah, it's them versus the droids and Asajj Ventress,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. And then
Yeah, no, it was cool.
they get more into the Obi-Wan Anakin Ahsoka relationship and all that. But the show progressively it gets better and better.
Yeah,
And then it kind of hits a wall at the end of season 5 going into season 6. Season 6 is kind of like its own it's kind of like its own animal really cuz
yeah.
they go into the clones with the memory chip
Well, let's
where
before we even go into that, like, what is your overall opinion at that point? So something I think about is so season 5 ends where Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order. Like they think she planted a bomb or killed somebody or something like that, right?
yeah, so Barriss
Um,
Offee basically frames Ahsoka
mhm,
for murder because Barriss Offee sets off a bomb in the Jedi Temple and it
right,
kills a lot of people in the hangar bay, kills a lot of clone troopers and a couple workers and stuff like that. So they're trying to find out who's been planning these like terrorist attacks essentially.
right.
And Barriss Offee essentially um, fought Asajj Ventress, took her lightsabers, turned to the dark side, and framed Ahsoka for murder. So
And that
nobody believes Ahsoka.
right.
Anakin believed Ahsoka, but Anakin basically had no means of like helping because it was just one Jedi versus the whole council. Like he had really no say in anything. So it was
And,
Ahsoka and Anakin versus everyone else.
and even then, I think if and it's been a while since I saw that episode, but or that arc of episodes, but doesn't it end where like Anakin kind of ultimately just is like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything, like short of, quitting the order and rebelling, like there's nothing I can do, you're fucked. And like that's where she loses faith in the
Yeah,
Jedi.
yeah. Like Anakin can't really do anything. Like he's trying to be mature about the whole situation, and he's trying to go through with all the steps that you're supposed to have a trial, and
Hmm.
it's the whole innocent until proven guilty thing. But she's already being treated like she's
Right.
guilty by the whole Jedi Order, so it's kind of like a cluster for her.
No, I think her arc as a character is really well done, and I'm glad that it happened in a television show and not like a movie. Because the other thing too is like Barriss is her best friend by this point. Aside from like Anakin, like Barriss is made out to be like Ahsoka's best friend, and she uses Ahsoka to plan like to as the scapegoat to do this.
Hmm.
So right here, like this whole little arc of things is supposed to be Ahsoka losing faith in the Jedi Order, and that kind of starts with her best friend betraying her, and then it continues with all the other Jedi kind of like giving her the cold shoulder, not trusting her anymore, and then it culminates in like finally Anakin is like, if I have to choose between you and the Order, like I gotta choose the Order because all the evidence kind of points to you doing it, and then he tries to double back by the end, but at the end of it, she's like, I can't even trust you. Like, I'm out of here. Fuck you guys. Like, I gotta go figure this shit out on my own. And I
Yeah,
think the end of season 5 is a great way to go. Like, was a great way to go. All right, this character is not in the movie story, more or less. Exit Ahsoka. Like, she's gone off to do whatever. She might come back later. We don't. It doesn't matter. Like, she's away. She's not in the movies. We've fixed that sort of thing. But then season 6 happens, and I'm not. I guess I'm kind of curious. Like, what's your opinion on how that? Like, do you think season 6 should have happened given the way season 5 ended? Do you think they should have been like flipped or what?
I think season 6 should have happened. I think it was important to show why the clone troopers just kind of flip on a dime like that for Order 66.
Yeah.
Like you have a whole TV show, you have episode 2, the whole show, and episode 3, and they show you basically that these Jedi have relationships with these clone troopers, like they're buddies, they're war pals. They all get along really well.
Mm,
And the clones are loyal to the Jedi and to the Republic. So why the hell would they just turn on a dime like that? Well, they explain that, and they really go into detail the struggle that the clones deal with. Like a lot of them are in denial, but one or two of them, I can't. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I
yeah.
remember it follows one of the clone troopers, and basically they're like, "This is an issue. We have these things in our head. You got to believe me. We got to take them out. We got to find some way to get these chips out before we do something crazy." Because one of the clone troopers, just some random one, they kill one of the Jedi during a battle. Instead of shooting at a droid, he shoots and guns down a Jedi, and everyone's like, "What the fuck?" Like they're freaking out. So I think it was important. Plus, you get a couple more random like adventure of the week type of things, like
Yeah.
the Mace Windu. Damn it, my freaking watch.
It's
Um,
okay.
like you see Mace Windu and Jar Jar like on a mission, which granted it's annoying as shit because I take Jar Jar in episode 1 any day over Jar Jar in the Clone Wars.
I think I prefer Jar Jar in episode 2 because he's barely there, and the one thing that he does do progresses the plot. Um,
Well, you know what I mean.
but
Like
I mean, at
he,
the same time, even Jar Jar though in the show is better than he is in the movies after a certain point. Because like in the
oh
beginning,
dude,
he
he's
is
terrible.
there to make jokes, but I
You
think
gotta
by the end, he actually does things with a degree of agency that aren't goofs. Like he's not just dicking around and like a good thing happens.
watch it
Like the
again.
actor does. Really? Am I remembering it wrong?
Yeah, because he like the whole Mace Windu thing. It's like, all right, gotta take fucking Jar Jar with me. Fine,
Yeah,
and
I
he
know
takes
I remember
he
that.
brings Jar Jar with him, and Jar Jar just constantly either talks too loud, does something stupid to get caught, draws
Mhm.
attention to Mace Windu, and Mace Windu's trying to like fight off people, and Jar Jar is just like kind of goofily walking around, accidentally like killing people, or just it's the fucking Jar Jar like scenario.
Yeah, and I
it's
think
just it's
those
so
are
bad.
clearly
But
for the kids, you know? I mean,
his
and that's
voice is
fine.
so bad in the Clone Wars.
It is.
It doesn't even sound like Ahmed Best at
I don't
all.
it's not, right?
I don't think it is. It's terrible, and that's why it's like I rather just see the actual Jar Jar in episode 1 and 2 versus this weird looking pile of shit that we got as Jar Jar. And here, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't mind Jar Jar. I don't mind him.
I don't
I
like
honestly,
Jar Jar.
I have a soft spot for him because when I was a kid, I mean, it drew attention to kids, and adults were just like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like it's another character." people didn't realize how bad he was going to be, but I personally don't really care because that's just his character. He's stupid.
And I think it is Ahmed Best.
Yeah, it is. Oh wait, in
Oh,
the show it is.
in the show, it is. I just
Oh,
looked
he
it
sounds
up.
awful
Yeah.
though.
Wow. Yeah, it doesn't sound like him. That's really weird.
It sounds like a very congested
Yeah, that's a great
Jar
way to
Jar.
put it. I mean, like from an objective point of view, congested is the word I would use. It just sounds weird. Maybe they mixed it weird and it wasn't the same as the movie. I don't know.
That's weird
But
me out. I had no idea.
no, at least that's what he's credited for. So it might not be him all of them. I have no idea. But I
Hmm.
agree with you. Like I agree with you in the sense that like Jar Jar was totally like when episode 1 came out 99, me and everybody I could think of that saw that movie thought Jar Jar was the funniest fucker on the planet. Like we thought that was hilarious. Like nobody could get enough of him. And just now I look at it and I'm more annoyed because he doesn't do much of anything. Like I guess like they play him too much for jokes in the movie, the first movie anyway, because it's just like, oh, he's supposed to kind of help us navigate, and he doesn't really do any of that. He's not pointing like go this way, go that way. Even just a little thing like that, I would have felt okay with, because it's like you're supposed to be doing something. Instead, he's just bitching in the back seat the whole time. And I think if you wanted a joke, maybe like a Gungan backseat driver would have been kind of funny. Like he's yelling at Obi-Wan like to go left or go right or something like that. But he doesn't do that. He just kind of is like around and he's just making jokes or he's goofing around or he's doing something frankly kind of annoying. And it's not until episode 2. I mean, he kind of like has the army stuff in episode 1, but in episode 2 he's actually like, "Hey, I'm trying to be like a good representative here, so let's give the chancellor emergency powers and like fuck everything up." And it's because of him that all this shit moves forward. But in the show, he's definitely for laughs, and at least according to IMDb, there's only 7 episodes with Jar Jar in it.
Yeah,
So
he's supposed to be a diplomat. So essentially, Mace Windu takes Jar Jar because Jar Jar is a diplomat, and he's supposed to like talk to these to the Watto people
right.
and on this
God, I wish
planet.
I could remember their name.
And basically Jar Jar like fucks shit up, and him and Mace Windu got to fight their way out. And it's been a while since I've seen the episode, so take what I'm saying with a grain
Same.
of salt. Go watch it yourself. It's been a while. I gotta rewatch it because and this is gonna lead into my point right here. This show is fantastic,
Very much.
but it stops at season 6 because for all intents and purposes, this show basically ended after season 6 because season 7 is kind of its own breed. It's not really too connected to the previous seasons. Like, so season 7, it basically starts off the first 4 episodes. It's about this thing called the Bad Batch. It's this
Hmm.
group of clones that had these mutations or something at during the birthing process. So instead of them being just normal clones like Rex, Cody, Echo, Fives, all these other guys, they have superpower kind of deals. And it's really weird and it doesn't really feel like it has a place in Star Wars. But
I mean, it does kind of. I kind of almost wish it was a little bit more elaborate on, because to me, why would you not breed super clones? Because that's what this kind of. I
that's
think
what
that
I'm
that's what
saying.
this is trying to beat around the bush about. Is he's like they were born with like air quotes favorable mutations, as in like, okay, so you're telling me that this clone was born accidentally being able to lift like a spaceship? Like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. So
And I get the vibe like this is some back behind the scenes like Palpatine breeding super clones thing, because even the Bad Batch admits that they don't have like a lot of awareness of their mission. They kind of just get the orders and they just go do the thing. Now I'm kind of wondering like, are they less, yeah, it's a group of people that like turned out lucky, they're favorable, or more of a, hey, if these guys work, what if we just make a bunch of them kind of type situation?
yeah, like for me, they basically they really put themselves in a hole here because
Mm-hmm.
why make these Bad Batch guys? Why make these guys with superpowers essentially? Because if you really want to win the war, you would just make all of them with superpowers.
Right.
There's no way that was a accident. There's no fucking way.
No, not a chance.
So to me, it's like, okay, so Lucasfilm essentially is retconning everything. And they're also going to be retconning the Clone
Hmm.
Wars because, I mean, now there's no fucking point in having the clones like be normal soldiers, hardened soldiers. They make the clone commandos look not as good. That's really sad because the
I
clone
just want
commandos
an
are the like
explanation. Like, why are they not doing this? Are they
because
new?
reasons, because money, because they
Well,
have terrible ideas.
I no, I don't mean that. I mean like in the storyline of the show, like I feel
Oh
like
yeah,
they drop kind of like a big thread because it's like if you explain to me that there's only one Bad Batch because you can even say like because reasons because it ultimately imply it's a conspiracy. But what I mean is like they act like the Bad Batch is just like a happenstance situation of these really good clones. Clearly, they're not. Like they even air quote it in the show. It's like clearly this is supposed to be kind of a conspiracy. That's cool. Give me a reason why there's not more of them, or something like that. Um,
they probably haven't thought that out enough.
well, I think they just didn't have the time. I mean,
Oh,
look at
they've
these
had
episodes.
time. They've had time. They've had so
Oh no,
essentially
I mean like Lucasfilm was like, you're only gonna get like 3 episodes of this, and then you got to move on to the next arc, kind of type situation. Like we're only gonna pay you for 3 episodes, so you better explain it all in 3, 4 episodes, as opposed to like, well, what if we did like 50% Bad Batch, fade that into Ahsoka or something like that? Because what we're ultimately getting to at the other part of this season is this god awful like Ahsoka's adventure to the spice mines at Kessel thing, which doesn't make any sense for a lot of reasons. I think the biggest, yeah. Well, anyway, we'll get to that.
I'm not happy with this new season, and we'll get more into it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so you get this whole Bad Batch thing, and they basically their mission is well, the whole thing, the whole point of this arc is that the Separatists know that the Republic is attacking certain spots. They know how they're going to attack, and they basically know the battle tactics. They don't
Yeah.
know how they know this. They don't know how they're getting flanked, and they have no idea how they're losing the battles because every move they make, the Separatists know what they're doing. So, why is this happening? Well, Rex has an idea. It's probably Echo. Maybe Echo's still alive. Maybe they're using Echo's battle plans like they captured him. Like he didn't actually die. They just kept him as prisoner of war and they're taking his tactics.
So hey,
So
real quick, when because this was something that threw me off because I started rewatching it and I didn't get all the way through and I couldn't remember what the hell they were talking about. What episode or what arc does Echo die in? Is it like that beginning one when they're on the satellite station or whatever the heck it is?
I can't remember. It's been a while since, again, like it's been a while since I've seen the whole series all the way through. Like whenever I do watch the Clone Wars, I
Mm-hmm.
usually just kind of jump around from episode to episode. I don't really go in order.
I
Um,
just let it play usually because I'm like, oh yeah, if it's like a really good one, I'll pay attention. But it's usually like a background thing half the time.
I
But
usually
yeah,
watch the middle of the series. I'll usually turn on an episode from like 3 or 4. I don't really start from the beginning, but I gotta
yeah,
look it over again and watch it and kind of see if it all is coherently written in season 7 and
yeah.
make
I know
sure that
Disney Plus was doing like a these are episodes you should watch before the new season thing before it came out. But I was like, I've already watched half of those, so I don't really care. Like I've already seen all of them, so I don't really care. I'm not gonna do that right now.
like
And I'm like,
collectively I remember like everything like
right, same,
altogether. I know what happens. Like I know that Echo died.
same. No,
Yeah,
he
like
definitely dies.
I knew like what all happened. I just can't remember like what season and everything. So,
Yeah, I guess
but
to me it's just like at what point every clone I remember dying is like either clearly shot or blown up, and there's
yeah,
not like a oh, there was an opportunity there for the clones or for the droids to have taken him. But I'm trying to
yeah.
remember if there was that, but it's not that important. But yeah, they have Echo captive and they're using his brain to like analyze clone tactics.
Yeah, so before they even know that, Commander Cody's like, I have a proposition for you guys.
Mm,
and I have a recommendation to use the Bad Batch on our mission because they're going to help us. And
right.
Rex is like, hell no, they're fucking wild cards. They don't know how to, act properly. And Commander Cody's like, well,
But that's the point.
yep. And he's like, we need some wild cards to get into the base and take care of this
Hmm.
stuff. So basically, you see they all have superpowers. One has super strength. One has one's a sharpshooter, so not even just like a sniper, but he hits every shot he makes, which is fine. That's understandable. They kind of go a little crazy with it with the mirrors when he's like placing the sheets of metal in the hallway.
Yeah,
And
they do get a little like quirky with some of these things.
yeah, the guy has super strength, which that there's no place in Star Wars for that unless you're an alien species that just is strong. Like Wookiees are strong. That's
Well, I think
fine. But
also
why
make
are
him
you
like have
making
a flaw. Like he's dumb and he's like kind of a Jar Jar esque doing it for laughs
Oh,
thing.
he's terrible.
It's
He's
really
worse than Jar
annoying.
Jar.
Oh, agreed. He's really annoying. But I mean,
He's like
like,
Mr.
make him
Incredible with a second grade reading level.
essentially. And that's a very good way to put it. He's a moron. And I think like that could have easily been played to be his weakness because like he's super strong, but he's super dumb. Have him like fuck something up at least once or twice. Instead, he's always like almost or not. Like he just isn't. And it's like, okay, whatever. And I think that really the biggest problem so far with this season is just the pacing. We're given like 2 or 3 episodes to do a lot of development and to introduce a lot of new characters, and we're not really giving them any time. Even when the earlier seasons, like entirely talking about like Rex or Cody or Echo or Fives or like one of these like introduced, ultimately fleshed out characters. There's a handful of new ones here and there, but they're there like an episode or two and they're gone. These guys are like, and we're not really caring about them. These guys are like the centerpiece of the episodes, and it's kind of like that guy is the strong one, that guy is the sharpshooter, but I'm supposed to care about these characters. But why? They're just tools like everybody else. They're not
Yeah.
developed like Rex.
Yeah, like I mean you can say they didn't have time to develop them, but the bottom line is that they had years. They've had since Star Wars was bought to work on these things. And the first 4 episodes were already done for the most part. They had rough animation done
But I hear
and they had
they're not
characters
even
picked out.
using them. These aren't those, are they?
I don't know. I mean,
I've
I
heard
guess
some complaints that they're not. I've heard some complaints that
maybe.
this is like a sequel trilogy situation where they had all the episodes were pre-rendered and they were just like, yeah, no, we're gonna like because they're gonna write their own thing, which
I feel like it's
I
not
don't know.
what they had planned.
No,
Um,
definitely not.
Now I was told that they were already released before in just the rough animation like
Yeah,
years
they were. I
ago,
think it's like a special
but
features or
I
something.
highly doubt that this is like the legit plan because everything
Mm-mm.
Lucasfilm has done since they were bought out by Disney and ever since Kathleen Kennedy took over, everything they've done and said has been a lie. So,
Well, it's also been like their way of putting their stamp on it, which I think is
well,
the most annoying thing. It's like just use what you already have. Like there's
yeah,
no reason. Like I don't know. To me, it's like the sequel trilogy and the Clone Wars at this point could have easily just been like Lucas handed you the plot. He handed you his notes. He said, "Hey, this is what I had an idea for. Just fucking do that." And then for these Star Wars story movies like Rogue One and Solo and shit, do whatever the hell you want. Like who cares? Just do whatever you were going to do because clearly a one-off movie that may or may not be good is way better than 3 multi-million dollar movies that over time get worse. Like
and then
it
Solo
just
lost money.
Solo, that whole thing is just a I'm really curious about as like a quick aside, I am really curious about how Disney and directors work because I'm starting to feel like it's less the directors sucking and more Disney not allowing creative freedom like the because this is it's not like those
It
2
wasn't
directors that
even
were
Disney. It was Kathleen Kennedy. She straight up like just fired Lord and Miller, and they were done with the movie.
right.
And she straight up fired their ass, and they're like, "Get out of here! This movie's terrible." It's like you couldn't have peeked your head in at the beginning and seen what they were doing at like right at the get go. But
Well, the
instead,
thing that
you waited this whole time, and then you're just like, I don't like it. I'm going to fire them. And then
well,
she
the thing
hired
that
Ron.
drives me nuts is that everybody's like you, as far as Solo is concerned, like you hear a lot about how Lord and Miller like were doing a terrible job. You hear testimony from the actors and actresses in the movie that are like, this was a shit show. Like it was horrible to work with them. The movie didn't make any sense. Like as we were making it, we didn't feel like it was good. Part of me is like, is that really how you felt about it at the time? Or is that because Disney changed it up and you got to toe the row? Or is it true and like they did suck? In which case, fine. Like that's fine. You got to do what you got to do. The situation sucks because it's like allegedly they did go and complain to Lucasfilms and said, "Hey, this is really not working out. Like, please step in and do something." And up until the movie was like 80% done, did Lucasfilm do anything about it? Then they put Ron Howard in, which wasn't a worst bad choice. I mean, again, Solo isn't like a garbage movie. It's just nothing special. Um,
I
but
still haven't seen it all the way through.
it's not. I mean, I'd say watch it. It's or go listen to our episode by So What Happens Next on Solo. A shameless plug there. But aside from that, like it's not bad. Like I really like Donald Glover's performance as Lando in it. I think he does a good job, like channeling the Billy D. Williams. But everything else is like whatever. I mean, it's a heist movie. At the end of the day, if you like heist movies, you're going to be at least okay with Solo. It doesn't really do anything to anything canonically, I feel like, except for, some Han Solo backstory that when you think about it, doesn't really do anything in later, so it doesn't matter. But it's just kind of like, whatever, it's a movie.
It's
But
one of those. It's one of those movies where even though I haven't seen it, and I know it's kind of weird saying that this just because I haven't seen it, but I've seen plenty of reviews on it. If you go watch Mahler's review or like Unbridled Rage video of it, he breaks down the whole thing and he uses footage from the movie, and you get to basically see exactly what happens. And he uses clips and little scenes from the entire movie, not just like trailer shots.
yeah, it's
So
definitely nothing
and
special.
he explains the whole thing. So it's it's just like why bother with this? Nobody asked for it.
I
Just
think
leave
that's
it
why I
alone.
feel the way I
Nobody.
feel about it.
It's
Yeah, I didn't ask
unnecessary.
for
It
it.
was a cash grab that didn't even grab any cash hardly. Like
Yeah.
had a terrible movie. You had a hard time even making it for that matter. You had no toys or collectibles for it, and any of the toys or collectibles or merchandise that you had for the movie didn't sell.
Hmm.
Like you can go to GameStop now and still find Solo stuff just sitting there on the clearance shelf. Like
Well, and
it's pretty bad.
this is where Disney really bugs me because it's a part for what my main point before with the directors is that you have the same situation happening with what's it called, that new Doctor Strange movie, right? Like now Sam Raimi's on board to direct it, and I am
Yeah,
like super cautious because I like Sam Raimi as a director. But at the same time, is he going to get to Sam Raimi up the movie, or is it going to be what Disney wants it to be to a T? Because that is the theme I'm hearing with all these movies.
that they're
Is
puppets
that
essentially.
well, it's like they have a director and the director is quote unquote not working out. And I'm like, is that because they want to do something that's maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say like avant-garde, but just something that's slightly different from this formulaic kind of boring ass trash that you're putting out? Or is it because they're genuinely not like willing to even budge? And I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better because I think Disney now, like Solo's a good example, right? Disney was able to dump a fuck ton of money into that movie to get Ron Howard to direct it after it was 80% done, reshoot a ton of it, and then put it out, take it as a loss that it was. Clearly, I mean, they didn't, like you said, they didn't advertise, they didn't put out all this shit. They knew they weren't going to make that money back, but they've already advertised it enough to go, we're making a Solo movie. We got to put it out. Let's not waste any more money on it than it is. Call it a loss and move on. And they did. And it's like they have enough money to, do that kind of shit and take that risk in a loss. Why not just make something interesting? Because Solo is boring. Like it's to me, it's a movie that's so neutral that I just don't care. It's like I can't even call it bad because it just doesn't do anything to me.
It's like a broken pencil. That's pointless. There you
Yeah,
go.
but see, if you sharpened it, it'd be a good movie, and it's not. It just there's nothing to it. It's just like I'm watching them do this thing. That's cool, I guess. Whatever. Okay, I didn't ask for this. I don't really care, but all right.
You want to know how I actually saw that it was confirmed that Solo was coming out?
Mm.
Okay, so online and everything, I knew it was going to be a thing, but I was just like, are they really not like I was 80% sure. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know. They should scrap this movie. I was working at the funeral home at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
I was going out on one of my calls, and I had to stop at the gas station to fill up the van, and I had to get a couple snacks because I was making a long drive that day. I think I was going to I think I was going to Gainesville one day, and I'm loading up here in town, and I'm looking at the snacks. I see a Chex Mix bag with the discount Han Solo on it, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, I got
Yeah.
I got freaking Alden third Aaron or fifth Aaron Reich or whatever.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah, and I'm just like, "Are you serious right now?" And it was just the worst looking Han Solo ever. I was like, "This is terrible, guys. Can
Well,
we
I
just
think
not do
I
this?"
I think there's like a ton of Hulu advertisement. There was a ton of some kind of like streaming service 5-second ads that would constantly come up and just blast the little like, peppy solo Star Wars theme song, and it would just be like solo da, 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 and then it would end and it was like coming out this such and such time, and I was like I got more frustrated with the ads than the actual movie.
It's terrible. Just
I mean, I think you gotta approach it like the EU approached it. Make stories about the nothing characters that were nothing in the movies, and then make them something in your spinoff.
That's what the Clone Wars did, because and that's gonna, and this kind of leads to my next point. But
Mhm.
before we get to the next thing, because we keep going sidetracked a little bit.
Let's talk about the rest of season 7 because
Okay.
that feels like such a thing now.
So season 7, we get the Bad Batch episodes. They're fine.
Yeah.
They feel more like the Clone Wars show before than it does the rest of the season. And that's my problem. It starts off fine. I'm not in love with the first 4 episodes. I love the show as a whole leading up to that.
I feel
So
like before you continue, I feel like this is exactly how to describe the sequel trilogy. Like we're doing the same thing we were before. I'm not loving it, but I'm not hating it. And then
I
it's
fucking
like,
hate it.
oh fuck, now I hate it. Like the next, like in order, so like arc 1 equals the Force Awakens. We're just rehashing 4. There's nothing to hate so much as there is just to not care about. And then the second one comes out, and that's where it's like, what the fuck?
I was more confused about episode 7 than anything, and me and you saw it a bunch of times in theaters.
Yeah.
Me and you saw it like 2 or 3 times together. And I was just kind of like, how the fuck are they? What? I was just confused. I think you had your head wrapped around it a little bit more than I did.
I think to
But
me it was that it's the first of a new trilogy, right? So to me when that movie came out, it was like, "Oh wow, these are like really big plot points. I'm so curious how are they gonna, you know, like how are they gonna tie up that end? Like holy crap, this is gonna be crazy. They must be really like you know, going hard on this story, and then they just kind of didn't. And it wasn't so much subterfuge as just frustration when 8 came out because it was like I was really set up to I was curious because these seemed like such big things to wrap up that by the time we went to wrap them up, we just decided not to. And it's like you didn't write yourself in a corner. You could have found a way to wrap it up, but you didn't.
that's what happens when you write a first draft for a movie.
Well, that's
And
what happens when you let 5 different people write 3 different movies, and none of them are overlapping except the last one and the first one. Doesn't make any
exactly.
sense.
But that's the issue with season 7. Season 7, it
Mm.
goes from okay, this is fine to when they introduce the Bad Batch, and you're just like, wait, what? And then it keeps going. You're like, you know what? I can live with it.
Yeah.
Fine. Not my favorite episode arc. It is what it is. Fuck it.
Right.
Essentially, to sum everything up, fuck it. Whatever. Episode 5 rolls around.
I
Why? So
mean,
you,
episode 5 even starts out like it starts out okay. Like I'm kind of because I'm like, okay, let's see what Ahsoka's life is now that she's not part of the Order and she's just kind of like not on the run, not like illegally living on Coruscant, but she doesn't have a safety net anymore. There's no safety net of the Jedi. And then even when she meets the sister, it's like, okay, this is fine. And then it sort of takes a turn after we decide to do the job. And
Yeah,
that's where I'm
once
like,
they
this
introduce
is not
Karen,
good.
once they introduce Karen to the fucking show, you're just like, oh god.
No, she bothered me. She bothered me because it felt like they couldn't decide what they wanted to do with her.
Well,
Because it was
both
like,
both of them are terrible. Like those, both of those sisters are so moronic, and
well, and that's the
it's
problem is it's
insulting.
like they're not that's maybe a way to put it because it's not like one with the what they're trying to do that I can tell is that one of them is supposed to be streetwise, knows what she's doing, but she's also manipulative, right? And like she's manipulating her younger and very naive sister into doing shit, this criminal shit. And it's like there are like so many different ways they can play this. They could play this to like a familial abuse angle and that she's like really using her sister and that she is a horrible person for doing it and we're going to have her find out. Or we could do, she thinks she's always right and then at the end she kind of learns her lesson. Or we could do like the younger we could even do a darker bad kind of ending and that like the younger sister learns like how to be street smart and then just becomes the kind of crappy person her older sister is and Ahsoka is sort of forced to sit there and watch it despite not wanting it to happen. Like there's so many other cooler ways this could go and it doesn't do any of them. It's like it presents you all these options and I was kind of sitting there like okay, where are we going with this? And
This
then it ultimately just decides to do nothing.
this show progressed from pretty much a kids show to a show that adults can watch and go, damn. Like they do some crazy shit throughout the series. And now season 7 rolls around and you're just like, what happened to that? Like you're you see the stuff with Echo and they've basically tortured him and made him like a cyborg.
Yeah.
That was kind of fucked up.
I liked how that ended though.
But
Like
then
the,
now
just the arc of that. It
it was
ends where they
cool.
bring Echo back and he can like hack into computers and shit as like a cyborg now. And he's like feels like the odd man out. So he goes with the Bad Batch. And I'm like, that's a great way to wrap that character out. Like that's fine.
Which is fine. But then you take this screeching halt to this Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants arc, and you're just like, why is this a thing? So Ahsoka basically is going off on her own. She's kind
Hmm.
of like a lone wolf flying solo, Zach Galifianakis style, Wolfpack style. And she runs into these sisters, and the one sister, the younger sister, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm hardened. I fucking grew up in the hood of Coruscant."
Yeah, from when they introduce her as like this like hardened kind of mechanic person and then by the end of the arc it's like they take a complete 180 on that character and it's kind of annoying because it's like you had her like to me she was set up in the beginning as like yeah, me and my sister do some like questionably legal activities. I'm trying to get away from all of this. I'm building this ship to leave. And I'm like, that's fine. That's a decent character. We've seen it before, but it's not like it's so, you know, unique that it needs to only have one. And then it's just like, never mind. She does a lot of really stupid shit and just like isn't as hard, suddenly not as hardened as she was introduced as. Cause it's not even like just her saying it. It's like she's introduced that way
Her actions are awful.
and they make no sense. It's like it's like you are introduced. The show introduced you as somebody who is living kind of on this streetwise lifestyle, not someone who's super naive. And then you just suddenly start doing stupid shit. And I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, why are it goes back to like taking 180s on characters that you see in the sequel trilogy. It's like, why are we doing this? Like, just stick with the character you wrote. Just do it. If you don't like it, then just try to write it into something you want this to go. Don't just decide halfway through that you want the character to be different.
Well, they do the same thing with her sister Karen.
Exactly.
Like you're just like, oh wow, she's like legitimately into this crime syndicate thing going
No,
on.
and they make her to
Straight
be
up.
the bad guy
And
because
then,
it's like
well, she's just a freaking she's a wimp as well. Like she's just like, yeah, I'm the fucking crime lord, boss, whatever.
Right.
And then they make her out to be just this big sissy, and you're just like, this is the worst shit show I've ever seen in this show. And this is the seventh season, and it's
Yeah.
finally gone downhill completely. And you're just like, this is not making sense whatsoever. Why are we following these characters? Why the fuck does Ahsoka even care about them? Like Ahsoka doesn't like again, like I said earlier today,
Hmm.
Ahsoka doesn't owe anyone anything.
Right.
And Ahsoka's bike got trashed. Aw, boo hoo. Fix your bike, then get out of there. It's not that
Well, I
hard.
think that what it's trying to do, and like this is the whole point of that arc, is its purpose is to go, okay, look, like let's look at Ahsoka now. Okay, cool. She still can't help but do what is apparently provided to you to be the right thing. Like helping these people is the actual like Jedi way, right? So she's, even though she's not a Jedi anymore, she doesn't owe anybody anything. She's still a morally good person who's going to help these people. And it ultimately doesn't do her any good to do that. So you kind of get this double whammy of like she's still willing to do the right thing even though it's kind of sucks for her to do. That's fine. That's great because it shows who your character is despite all this shit. It's a great way to reintroduce your character. But like when you do that and you kind of, I mean, it's so stretched out because she's like, I can't tell them I'm a Jedi because they hate the fucking Jedi. And I'm like, I feel like there's a world where this could be explained as like, I used to be a Jedi and I'm not anymore. And they even react to it later, like, you can do that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
see, there's a lot of ignorance in the world about the Jedi. And I think that would have been a cool thing to explore a little bit is like maybe have her explain a little bit of what happened and how you can just leave the order. It's not like a cult or it's not like a for life thing. And they like kind of understand it, but maybe still want her to leave. And I kind of wish it ended on a bit of a sour note. Like I kind of wish it ended where the Mandalorians come and they're just like, you should get out of here. Like, you know, you helped us, but you need to leave. And like she goes with the Mandalorians to do their shit. But
But that,
ultimately, that's all this does is it just sets up the Mandalore arc
that's my problem with everything.
with
Like,
4 episodes of it.
for one, you're Ahsoka. Again, you don't owe these people anything. But if you want to help them, fucking help them. But instead of just trying to be quiet about everything, just straight up tell them and be like, listen, I'm a Jedi. I left the Order, but I'm on my own. But if you need my help, I'm here to help you. But I'm not with the Order anymore. Instead of beating around the bush, be like, oh my God, I'm so scared if they're going to hate me. These people that I don't know aren't going to like me. It's like, dude,
Well,
you're in war. You fought thousands of droids. You fought thousands of people who have done terrible things to people. You've made friends with a lot of people. You've made alliances with different species on all types of different planets. And you're scared of these two lesbian looking chicks not liking you? Are you serious right now? Like,
well, I
it,
think it's less. I think it's less that it's the sense of the way I look. I guess we interpret it in different ways because the way I look at it is you now have like look at the Jedi Order as a whole, right? Like it's sort of a weird family. Like the Jedi are almost like a freaky cult when you think about it. Like they take you away when you're like a baby, and then they raise you, and they're like your family. So not only did was it like she was betrayed by her coworkers, but she was also betrayed by like the only family she's arguably ever known.
well, it's similar
On
to,
top well, hold up. So, like, on top of that, she feels betrayed by these people. So now she comes into these guys who are, as far as we can tell, again, this is sort of something that's not really provided as far as a timeline goes, but as far as we can tell, they're the only people that she has like any kind of minor emotional connection to. So it's like you're desperate to have that sense of community that you've now lost. Like you really feel alone. My problem is they could have really taken the whole thing as a great angle to be like, have her maybe beat around the bush for a minute, then have her come out as saying like I am a Jedi or I used to be a Jedi, I can do all this cool shit. Have the older sister try to like manipulate her into using her Jedi abilities to do some like really illegal shit. At the same time, have the younger sister see that and realize, oh shit, my older sister is like abusive and manipulative as fuck. Like, I should not, like, she's doing that to me. I should not follow this person around. Like, make the older sister the bad guy. It tries so hard to let, like, the sisters still be sisters, but it tries to have its cake and eat it too. Cause
yeah,
it's like,
they try to make it to where like, oh, she's still an amazing sister. You go, girl. Like,
Well,
no,
it's just like it
you
still
made
tries it does
it
it's too
wrote-
afraid to I feel like
you
it
wrote
says
it
it,
would have been a better episode.
well, I think it's like
Bottom line.
it's too afraid to go, you know, to pick one. Either, you know, stick with the family first kind of vibe or say like, you know, your family can be just as manipulative as a not family person. Like pick one. You really can't do both. Otherwise nothing happens. And
Exactly.
it's and that's what happens is the end of this, the sister isn't a better person. Like nothing has changed as far as their characters go, and yet they did do this whole thing. And like, yeah, she has like minor bits of like, sure, I'll go save Ahsoka, but it's done in such a way where it's like, well, if you don't, everything will be fine. Like if you just fucking leave, then she's still gonna get out. I know they don't know that, but it's delivered in such a way where it's like, this is annoying. Like I, as the viewer, can tell this is a bad idea and we're gonna do it anyway. And it all just boils down to like a waste of time because the only thing it does is it gets Ahsoka on the radar of the Mandalorians while they're on whatever the spice planet.
Yeah,
Um
they could have left the Pikes alone, and it still would have
yeah, it
just
was
had
such a
the same thing.
weird. Also, that's something else I've noticed in Star Wars that it doesn't do in all of Star Wars is have you noticed they do this weird like I was like, this is like a weird, like speciesist kind of thing. Like, are all the Pikes drug smuggling criminals, or are like some of the species just people? Because the way the show and the movies present it is like, oh, these are the Pikes. Like those Pikes are over there drug dealing and shit. I'm like, wait a minute, you're telling me an entire planet of people, this one species of people, they all do like drug things.
Maybe
It
not.
becomes well, and that's the thing is like the problem you run into when you expand a universe like this is like you've set up all the Wookiees to be like these jungle people and like Chewbacca's kind of the weird outlier. So like you have to either give me other characters doing other Wookiees doing other things or what? Give me a reason. But
Yeah,
that's a
possibly.
minor thing.
They could. I mean, you never know. I think that's. I don't think that's really too important. But they
No, it's not. It was just something I noticed when I was watching it.
for instance, in the next Jedi Fallen Order game, they probably could introduce a Pike as a Rebel Alliance person or
And see,
whatever.
like I think something like that would be kind of neat. Like as long as we don't make a big goddamn point of doing that. I mean,
They could.
Disney just seems so notorious for like, hey, we're doing something, you know, to
They'd
either be
probably make it a girl,
representative
but
or
whatever.
whatever. I mean, they beat you over the head with shit. So it's like, hey, we're representing this subgroup of subculture of people or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, you could just do it and not tell me about it, and it's fine. Like I don't.
And we're gonna make it a woman as well. It's like,
Well, it's like, is
okay.
it? I guess to me, it raises the question of like, does it count when you're doing it to do it and not doing it when it comes from a place of like genuine giving a shit.
It
Like
doesn't
it,
come
just
from a
do it.
it doesn't come from a creative and art and a passionate perspective. It comes from a social
It comes from a money perspective
and
is
a
my
money perspective.
problem.
Yeah, and that's where you're losing me here because it's like George made all this stuff from his passion, and
Well,
that's
and
how
it's like
he did everything. And now it's like, okay, I don't feel the same passion from anything Star Wars over the past
I
eight.
don't feel it from anything Disney to be honest. Period. Marvel, Star Wars, the whole deal.
Exactly nothing. Like the MCU is cool, and I love the MCU. I feel the passion in certain movies more than others, and you can feel that genuinity, or is that a word? Whatever.
Probably not, but it's there.
Whatever.
You made it a word. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Hashtag genuinity, everybody.
yay. But you can feel that though in certain
I think you
movies.
feel it definitely in the earlier movies because, like, when you look at the history of all that, you know, like Iron Man, you have Robert Downey Jr., who, like, you're kind of throwing a bone at this point. Like, the dude is, like, blacklisted from everything, and you're kind of like, yeah, okay, here, go ahead and be Iron Man. Like, whatever.
A
These,
backstory in Hollywood history.
well, oh, yeah. And it's like, here you go. Go ahead and do this character. We're doing a movie. Nobody really cares about Iron Man that much. We have this IP. Let's do it. Superhero movies are like kind of not as successful anymore. Fuck it. And then they do it and it's a hit. And like you can tell like the movie is its own thing. Like it's unique for the time especially. And it eventually this MCU thing just kind of grows into a formulaic A, B, C, done with the movie, post credits tease into the next movie, and then we go on. And it's just like, I don't care. It becomes flashy by Endgame. It's just so flashy, and I don't care. It's like I see Black Widow die, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, if anything, that scene just kind of was getting irritating anyway. So I'm glad one of them died. Jesus. And then we move
What up,
on.
dude? I didn't realize that you're in the chat. I didn't pull up the comment thing on here
Oh
earlier.
shoot.
What up, dude? He said a few things. He
I
said
agree with his last comment.
the
Yeah,
MCU
this one.
hospital was it's too formulaic. Yeah, you're right. And
Absolutely.
there's certain newer movies aren't bad, but there's a there's a point where you quit the formulaic stuff and kind of get on with it, you know.
And that is what I'm really hoping that this next Doctor Strange movie is going to do with Rami. Like, I'm really hoping that they let him kind of maybe do something like you do with Spider-Man, or make it because like Spider-Man feels like I'm watching a comic book, not like Endgame where I'm watching, I don't know, pretty pictures or something like that. Like, make it something for me to watch and
It's
take in, as opposed to just a cool thing. Like, I could watch it on mute and I'm going to get the same emotional effect.
If Raimi would have did a Star Wars movie, that would have been 10 times better than anything that Disney would do, but no, they're not going to do that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe if he does good on Doctor Strange, they'll give him a movie or a show or a few episodes or something to do. I think it'd be cool. Like, that's what I want to see.
Ever let him direct the Mandalorian episode, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, I know that directing TV shows doesn't give you the same kind of leeway as movies do, but I just think it would still be cool to like get a different voice in there, because this kind of goes back to the thing I was ranting about earlier. Is like you're trying to get these directors to play ball your way. Like, the production company Disney is really trying to control what they're making. And it's kind of annoying because it's like, you might as well not have a director. Just have a producer sit on set and tell them what to do then, because what's the point? You're not getting any kind of creativity out of it. You're getting this formulaic nonsense. And that's where I'm kind of like, you have these massive IPs and you've already proved with Solo and with Rise of Skywalker and these other movies that aren't that great as far as movies go, but like, you're raking in the cash. Take the risk the other way and just let someone be kind of creative in the world you set up. Don't let them do like a Ryan Johnson and shit all over like the my problem with Johnson's take on it was like, I want to like rewrite the thing. It's like, well, you can't do that on movie number 8. You kind of have to do that on movie number 1 or like prequel number 1 or something. You can't just like do that halfway through and decide everything's going to be different. But I mean, when it comes to stuff like a great example is like Rogue One or Solo. It's like, just go do whatever the fuck you want. At the end of the movie, either everybody's going to be dead or it's not really going to matter to the later movies. So just go do something cool. Or Mandalorian's a good example of that, right? Because it's like, do something really cool, and it's all, don't have to care about how it affects the Skywalker family or whatever. Neat.
And this
Let it be creative.
and this is the problem with not having fans or people that actually passionately love Star Wars be in charge of it or have a
Mhm.
say in anything. And you can tell John Favreau truly does love Star Wars because The
With the amount that
Mandalorian
they
by
reference the holiday special, they definitely must love it or something.
you know what? As far as I'm concerned, it is the best Star Wars we've gotten.
Agreed.
I mean,
I think I could
I like
absolutely
I
agree
like
that
Rogue One. Rogue One's cool, but if we're gonna compare the two,
I mean, it's tough to compare
I'm
because
probably taking the Mandalorian on it, man.
if I have to go straight off just what I liked better, I'd have to say Mandalorian, but it's tough to compare because something that's nice about TV shows now is they're doing this like, The Mandalorian might as well be a movie in what, 9 parts, 7 parts, however many episodes there were of Mandalorian. 10 parts. And that's cool because it's like, and I kind of like how TV shows are doing that nowadays. Is it's like, if you watch something from like the 90s, it's just creature of the week. What are we dealing with this week? By the end of the episode, everything goes back to the normal and we're kind of like, who cares? But nowadays we're doing this thing like what you see it great with Mandalorian is like, there is an overarching plot and a point that we have to hit by the end, and we're going to take all this time to get there, and it does it really well. With
Which is
movies, you
which
don't
is
have that kind
great.
of time. Like, you have 2 hours. Well, arguably it's getting longer, and that is getting more annoying because I don't want to sit and watch this thing for 3 hours. I want it to be kind of pieced up. But you are dealing with like a shorter time frame, and I think that's where those two, as far as the new Star Wars stuff come in for me, they're kind of tied. As far as like best movie, I think that's come out recently, Rogue One, hands down.
Oh yeah,
TV show stuff, so far it's Mandalorian all the way. I mean, we'll see how
no
Clone
question.
Wars ends. I don't think it's has a chance of topping it, and we'll see if that Obi-Wan show ever happens and or tops it. But I got a feeling that it won't,
I hope
and
they
that's
don't.
not.
I really hope they don't even touch Obi-Wan.
I just don't
I
know
don't
what
want
they'll
them to mess with
do.
Obi-Wan.
I mean, the only thing I could think they'd do is like go, okay, Obi-Wan, like you have to leave Tatooine for a minute, and him be like, no, I can't. I got to watch out for this kid. And then something occurred to where he has to leave, go do this mission, and like repercussions or whatever, and then comes back.
Well, the only thing, like, they've already shown what. The same with a lot of stuff Star Wars has done. They've had over 30 years of progressing the franchise until they got bought out by Disney. You have 30 plus years of material you could have used, but they
Right.
chose not to. We already know what Obi-Wan does after episode 3.
Yeah, he kind of
He
just
lives on
fucks off for a
Tatooine.
while.
He looks after Luke. He fights and defeats Quinlan Voss. He embarrasses him in front of his Tusken Raider family. Quinlan Voss goes off the fuck off wherever, and then gets captured by the Yuzon Vong, and then he ends up becoming Darth Krayt later on. Obi-Wan, while he's on Tatooine, looks after Luke and kind of, I would assume, just takes care of,
Well, he's also talking to
criminals. And
Qui-Gon and shit,
yeah, he's also learning how to talk to Qui-Gon and become a
become
Force
immortal
ghost.
and all that.
Yeah, he's also trying to enhance his Jedi ability and, you know, just simple shit like that. Nothing crazy. And that's the whole point of Obi-Wan going to Tatooine, is to stay out of the limelight. Like, he's one of the last Jedi out there.
Mm-hmm.
He can't take any risks of going all over the galaxy on these grandiose adventures. Same with Yoda. Yoda just goes to Dagobah and fucks off there and just learns more about the Force. And that's it.
Right.
That's all he does. And they're gonna take all these crucial things about Star Wars and they're going to twist them and manipulate them into Disney what they want to do. And it's not going to make sense, like they've done with a lot of things. They've taken all these great things about Star Wars and basically did a 180 with them. And it's like, this doesn't make sense anymore. Why are you bothering with this? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, it's also like why, I don't know, 3, especially how like Yoda is on the verge of like tears in Organa's like little car, and he's like,
Yeah.
I fucked up, like I deserve to go into exile. Like it's a punishment. It's not meant to be like I gotta go hide. It's like I fucked up so hard that I deserve to be like away from everybody, and I need to like really like meditate on the Force and think about it and shit.
It's
And like
basically like a back to square one moment for him.
right, and I feel like it's that way for him and Obi-Wan in a way,
Yeah.
because it's like we're both gonna kind of seclude ourselves, and he's like, Obi-Wan, I got this training for you. Like, here's some crazy shit that I learned in season 6 of Clone Wars, BT Dubs, how to essentially become like
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
immortal. Yeah, that was such a cool thing in season 6. It was a weird way to end it, but it worked. Where it was like, hey, up until this point, when you die, you just become part of the Force, and then it's like, no, actually, if you do these certain things, you're part of the Force, but you're also your own entity. And it's like introducing that what came out of left field, and it worked. And it's crazy shit like that where we're dealing with like the lore of the Force that makes things kind of cool, and arguably was like one of my more favorite parts in episode 9 up until they got up to the dyad shit, and that got really weird. Or no, I'm sorry, not episode 9. Well, that bothered me. Well, it was cool in episode 9, but it was the best part of Fallen Order is when they're talking about like how the Force works. And it was just like, cool. Like, I am enjoying hearing about this shit, as opposed to like the Force is a magical power that can just do whatever you want it to do when you need it. It's like, I know in movie terms that's what it is, but can we give it some rules? And we start
Well,
doing that, and it's cool.
I've never played Fallen Order, so I don't really know. We'll talk
It's
about that
so
off
good.
air because
It's so good.
but that's what George wanted to go into, was more about the Force and everything. And what's cool about that is you have that whole invisible, mystical thing about it, but he also
Mhm.
gave it a scientific way of explaining how the Force is manipulated and how the Force lives within people biologically
Yeah, and I
versus it
gotta
just being,
say,
instead of just being like, "No, it's magic."
well, and that's the
Well,
thing
what do you
that
mean? Like, just magic. Like instead of just playing the whole it's magic card, like
Right.
Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, it's like there's a more in-depth thing to it scientifically.
I
And
gotta say, I like where this ultimately is going is the midichlorian angle. Like people hated that when it happened. I think it makes a lot of sense because you have to find a way for like only some people to be Jedi. And
and
you either are dealing with the mystical mumbo jumbo, oh, they're just stronger with the force, or
it goes to show that the
give
Force
it
is like
something.
choosing this person like more than others. So there's
Right. Like and that's the great part is you're still maintaining this agency by this higher power that is the force, right? Like it can choose people to have ultimately more of this microcellular organism within them to manipulate it or whatever.
it
And
doesn't
it's
take away
just
any of the mystical, magical part of it as well. And that's the
right.
cool.
It does a nice fusion of like, here's the mystical part and here's a biological component that kind of makes it make sense and is arguably one of the more science parts of this science fiction movie that exists. But
And it
people fucking
also,
hate it.
and what's cool is this is an angle that a lot of people don't see it as. If if you're just a regular person,
Hmm.
Star Wars world, say this Jedi needs some medical attention. There's a way for you as a non-Jedi to see how this person biologically is doing. So you can see the midichlorian tests going on
Yeah.
with this person. You can see what their levels are going to be like, and you can see how strong they're getting or if they're decreasing in strength. Like
And I
that's
mean, it also like makes you have these instances where they're like, well, midichlorian, because I think Qui-Gon explains it to Anakin in the first movie is like they live in everybody. Everybody has midichlorians, but like it varies in number. So like the more midichlorians you have, the more powerful with the force you ultimately are. It's not to say that you just are stronger all the time, but you have a better potential. And I think something that the new movies are trying to do is be like anybody could have the force. And I'm kind of like, I feel
bullshit.
like anybody could have the broom kid move in this universe. Anybody can move the broom from doorstep and lean it over into hand. Fine. Like I could buy that. Like if you take the training and you understand how to do it, okay. But that kid's not lifting a starship. I mean, unless he is a Jedi, then that's a whole different story. But what I mean is like anybody can move the broom, but not anybody can move a ship, or not anybody can like lift the X-wing out of the water, right? Like you got to be a Jedi or more to do that.
Well,
And I
that's
think that could be a cool way to do it. Is there are tiers of Jedi and you start to introduce it and then you kind of throw it away.
I think I don't I personally I don't really like that because that just takes away how special being a Jedi would be. Like
Yeah.
like if anyone can do anything with the Force, like only Jedi can move things with the Force. They can do this kind of stuff. Not just Jedi, but Force
Right.
users. They can do stuff like that.
That's a
If
good point.
if you don't have the Force, that's it. You just don't.
Right.
You can
And I
have
think that
you
that
can still
plays
have
so
midichlorians
well.
because everyone has midichlorians, but if you take it to where everyone has the Force and anyone can like turn a light switch on without touching it or
Hmm.
grabbing a cup and floating it to you, that takes the whole special like it makes it not special anymore.
No, you know what? I'll
Like,
go back on what I said. You make a really good point. Like that. That's true. I think, and it's
time travel. Like,
something.
if anyone can time travel, it just takes everything away and makes it cheap.
Right. I mean, no, it's a good point. And I think something that's sort of the crux of the Clone Wars, right? Is like the arrogance of the Jedi. Like we are so much better than average people, even though we're not going to say it. Like we're the guys who are policing the galaxy. We're the guys who save everybody. We're the heroes because we have this inherent ability to do it. And I think that's kind of the deeper meaning to all of it is like they're special because they got lucky genetically and they're arrogant about it and they don't deserve to be. Like you just got lucky. You don't deserve to be special just because you were born with extra like weird parasitic organisms or symbiotic organisms. But it's just like that's an angle that I kind of appreciate George Lucas taking. I wish that some of those things could have been developed more because I don't know. It kind of does come off like maybe have a jet like they have Jedi who do bad things, but maybe be like, show me some actually arrogant Jedi that aren't Anakin Skywalker, you know? And then they get kind of put in their place by like average people or something like that. But yeah, I think I'll take back what I said because I think you make a really good point. Is it's just it ruins the idea of there is a special, like these people are special and they have this ability. And I think it also, it defeats the character growth that you have the potential to do.
I just fuck. What was I gonna say? Oh my god. No,
But
like,
yeah,
oh, I know what I was gonna say. Okay,
okay.
so it's just I personally don't see the Jedi as being super super cocky and super arrogant as much as there's so much going on in the galaxy. The Separatists were so far spread out, and there's so much going on, and it's stressful. They also they have to do what's right. Like, they're peacekeepers and not specifically commanders, but
Hmm.
that's kind of what they're thrown into. So
And they do a
they're
good job
they're
of
still trying
showing it.
they're still trying to maintain that peacekeeper warrior aspect of them and not too much of the commander thing, but they get thrown too into it to where what are they going to do? Just not help people? Not do this thing for this planet? Like, they have to do what they need to do to eradicate and save these planets. So they're going to have to take that extra step, go that extra mile to do what they need to do, regardless of whether it goes with the Jedi Code or not. I guarantee you, Qui-Gon would have stepped up if he was still alive and became that general, became that commander role that the galaxy needed him to do. Qui-Gon wasn't one to, and I was talking to Salvador about this. Like, Qui-Gon was, honestly, if you look at the Jedi as a whole, Qui-Gon was one of the last true Jedi because he didn't always go by the book, but he went by what was right. So I feel like being a commander in the Clone Wars, being that general that the galaxy needed, and being one of those key pieces in the Jedi, that was the right thing to do. So he probably would have done that. Now, I could also see him not doing it and being like, you know what? The war is ridiculous. We shouldn't be a part of it. But more than likely, he would have taken a role in it. And that's just what Jedi do. Like, Qui-Gon
Yeah.
wanted to take on Anakin as another apprentice because that was the right thing to do. Anakin looked at Qui-Gon as somewhat of a father figure, even though he wasn't that close to him. But you could kind of start to see that relationship starting to build because Qui-Gon essentially freed Anakin. I mean, Anakin freed
Yeah.
himself, but I mean, Qui-Gon helped Anakin build that confidence up and to get
Hmm.
himself freed. So that was a huge impact on his life. So Qui-Gon, if he could have, he would have taken on Anakin as another apprentice.
Well, I
But
think you get the like Qui-Gon is a little more in that gray area of the Jedi, right? Like you bring up a good point. Like what is right is not always what is, I guess, like as far as the Jedi are concerned, like this is the Jedi code, this is what we follow. And as far as like a peaceful republic time, it works fine because there's no conflict. But
but he
then
also went by the wishes of the order as well. Like,
right, like you followed the rules to a point,
he
but then
wasn't
there
like a hipster, like a rebel. Like, he actually, like, he would go along with the rules and everything. But when it came down to brass tacks, he would do what needed to be done, regardless if it was strict orders from the Jedi or not.
right, and I think that would have made Anakin take a completely different turn. And I think that's obviously, I mean, that's what Lucas and everybody who was working on the movie wanted the plot to do was if Anakin was Qui-Gon's apprentice, Anakin wouldn't have turned to the dark side. Not because like Qui-Gon's a better teacher, a different moral standing than like the lawful good that is Obi-Wan. He was more like a neutral good, like leaning toward, if you're going to put it in like D&D terms, like he was like a neutral good, lawful good kind of mix. Whereas Obi-Wan is very like, I follow the rules of the order. Everything the order says is the right thing to do. And the Clone Wars TV show does a good job of making him kind of question that, right? Like, well, is this the right thing? Like with the Mandalore episodes, it's very good because it's like, how do I react to this? And every time he's presented with even the stuff with Sabine, it's like, or is it Sabine? Whoever the leader of Mandalore. Yeah,
Sabine Wren
the
is that
Prime Minister
rebel?
of Mandalore, right?
I have no idea.
Whatever. Well, his love interest, who's Mandalorian, who leads the planet.
Yeah,
When he's presented with like, and he even mentions that in the past this has come up where it's just like every time he's been presented with the it's her or the order situation, it's her, and like when it or it's the order, I mean, even when it came down to killing the person who was trying to kill her, he doesn't do it. Anakin just comes in and does it. And that kind of brings into your whole thing of like, what is, the right and wrong things to do in this war is like, and I think that is the best so far. The best scene in this new season is when Anakin does kind of, you're showing late war Anakin where he is like, I am sick and tired of just taking these people captive only for them to escape. And he like straight up kills that spider guy. Like I completely forgot about that till just now. Um,
Well,
he kills
I
him.
love that. I love that scene.
It's a great scene, and it does so much to tie in because it's like we constantly are talking about how this war is taking a toll on the Jedi specifically because it's making them question like at what point do we have to stop being Jedi, at least as far as on paper, and just start actually fighting a war. Like, because I think Tarkin, when they first introduced him in the Clone Wars, he kind of mentions that like the Jedi don't do enough. Like because they're restrained by their code, they won't be willing to kill generals or take people out as they need to. And like arguably his interpretation is Sith, and it's like you use your power to just do whatever you want kind of type thing. But at the same time, it brings up a good point because every single time, for instance, in the show, that's like, oh, we've captured Grievous or we've captured Dooku. It's like, by your standards, you should have killed Grievous or Dooku when you had the chance. And it ultimately boils down to that in the beginning of the third movie. Is Anakin,
Yeah.
it gives this whole scene with the spider guy, spider general dude, Admiral or whatever, that really gives a lot more weight. Admiral Trench, thank you. Gives a lot more weight to the Dooku execution because at that point you kind of see like it's not just a random like, you know, stumble morally for Anakin because the chancellor's telling him to do something. It's like he's already done this at least once, and he's like, "What's the problem with doing it again?" Like you're right, this is what should happen. And I think if, like you said, like Qui Gon was still a thing, and he did train Anakin, I don't think this would be an issue because Anakin would be clearly be able to see the Qui Gon way of like, okay, that's a step too far. Like murdering someone in cold blood when there is no reason to, that's a step too far. But like doing what you need to do to take someone out, like in the case of Dooku, maybe he should have killed him. Like Palpatine wanted him dead because it, opens up the door for Anakin to become his apprentice. But like the Clone Wars clearly show Dooku's been captured and it just doesn't work. So
Well,
I
that's
think there's like a line that needs to be moved over. It's a little bit like more gray, right? It's a blurred line when you're in war in Star Wars because it's just like there are some things that your code won't allow, but that code was written not in wartime. So what are you doing?
well, that's I personally, and I think Anakin would have turned either way, whether he was with Qui Gon or not.
Oh,
And here's
okay.
why. I think Qui Gon he was very by the book about the Jedi philosophy. He was very not for relationships. He was very just business.
Mm-hmm.
Just do what you need to do. This is the Jedi way. Do this. Don't get into relationships with people. Like he honestly, when you see him freeing Anakin, he doesn't really give a shit. He's just like, all right, say bye to your mom. Let's go. Like he doesn't really
Yeah.
grow really attached to her. He doesn't really feel bad for Anakin's mom. He just needs to get Anakin out of there and get him a better life.
Well,
So
it also where it begs the question too:
so
is he doing it because he wants Anakin to have a better life, or is he doing it because he believes Anakin's the chosen one? Like that's a question.
it's both, but as far as being able to relate to Anakin, I think Obi-Wan can relate to Anakin way more. For one,
Well, oh yeah, for sure.
Obi-Wan, if there's anyone that's going to keep Anakin from turning to the dark side, it would have been Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan had that relationship with Duchess Satine Wren.
Yeah,
I think that's her name. Either way,
so.
but
I can't tell if I'm messing up the rebel character or her.
it's okay. But either way, he had that relationship with her, and Jedi aren't supposed to have like romantic relationships like that. But Obi-Wan and Anakin have that in common. They both
Mm-hmm.
have their love interest, yet they kept that away from the Jedi.
And can I just say that right there is one of the best things about the Clone Wars television series is they do that kind of juxtaposition with characters where you have Obi-Wan was presented almost with the exact same scenario that Anakin was. right? You have this person that you care about deeply, that you're in love with, but you also have this like religion or Jedi kind of duty that you need to also adhere to. He chose the opposite thing Anakin did. And it's that kind of juxtaposition where it like develops your characters, it develops their relationship. It shows like a really interesting side of everybody. And it's kind of cool to be like, yeah, Anakin isn't like the first Jedi to deal with this scenario,
Yeah.
but he is one of the ones who chose a different path that ultimately results in, him turning to the dark side.
Yeah, Anakin tried doing way too much, which led to him to get too passionate about it, and for him
Mhm.
to draw towards anger. Obi-Wan still went with the Jedi philosophy. He still cared about he still cared about the Duchess, and he still loved her, but he still had a duty to do, and he still needed to do what was right, regardless if it was going to save her or not. But end of the day, he still tried to save her, and you can see he cried over her, like he held her body.
And that is
But
such a great I love that because even facing like arguably the one person in the galaxy he actually loved romantically, he still follows the Jedi Order. Like he doesn't turn to the dark side. And it's that kind of like, hey, let's make this dichotomy between like Obi-Wan and Anakin and show the the what could have been kind of scenario. It's great. It's
and if there's
really well
anybody that
done.
if there's anybody that should have turned to the dark side, it should have been Obi-Wan over
And
Anakin.
that's what makes him such a strong character.
Obi-Wan grew up with Qui-Gon.
Mhm.
He went through all of training and battles and everything with him. He watched Qui-Gon die right in front of him from Maul.
Mhm.
Held him as he died. He killed Darth Maul, which he
Yeah.
honestly, at the end of the day, this is a different story or a different discussion, but he should have killed Maul there. Um,
Yeah, I don't know how I feel
and then
about that.
and then he sees Duchess, whatever,
Right.
and then he dies from Maul again,
Mhm.
and he holds her as she dies, just like Qui-Gon. And then later on, Obi-Wan has to kill Anakin, or at least he thought he killed him before he turned to Vader.
Yeah.
And he sees the Jedi crumble right in front of his eyes, and he sees the galaxy just go into complete shit. He sees a defeated Yoda and has to basically
Mhm.
he has to watch on holograms of Anakin killing Jedi, killing all these masters. He sees Anakin killing Sindralig. He sees him killing the younglings.
That's the thing that bugs me.
He still doesn't turn,
Oh,
but
no, for sure. That doesn't bug me.
but it goes to show the mindset of Obi-Wan versus Anakin. And Obi-Wan had a very similar mindset to Qui-Gon because I don't think Qui-Gon
Mhm.
would have turned either. Like if
No, I don't think he would have turned.
Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were still a thing, and Anakin still was trained by Obi-Wan, I think at the end of the day, it probably would have been a Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan battle versus Anakin.
I think it would have been
That would have been cool. But
I mean, obviously, it'd be somebody has to die, but, I think it would have ultimately been like Anakin kills Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan kills Anakin, a la Darth Maul, scenario from the first movie, which I think would have been a lot emotionally weightiest. Like if you do have Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan have to go stop Anakin, or just have Anakin kill Qui-Gon in like a different scenario, and Obi-Wan now has to face having to kill Anakin. I think my biggest and I agree with there's other people I think who maybe have this. This isn't my original thought, but I think that the big trouble with the prequels is that, and the Clone Wars kind of fix it, but the prequel movies on their own is they try to make like Obi-Wan and Anakin more of a brother situation than a father-son situation, and it really I feel like it would have been a little bit more emotional if it was like Obi-Wan is stuck with this kid he had no intention of being a part of his life, and now he has to be the one person who's like fully responsible for him, right? Because Qui-Gon dies. And you get a little bit of that in 2 where he's like rebellious son to Obi-Wan, but you don't really get Obi-Wan's struggle. You just see him get irritated, which would have weighed more if it was ultimately when I'm watching them fight on Mustafar. It's not two brothers killing each other. It's not two friends killing each other like it kind of is represented, but it's like a father having to kill his son because he's evil and going to destroy the galaxy. Like that is a really weightiest thing to like have to way more interesting to see the prequel movies from Obi-Wan's perspective because it's from Anakin's, and all in all, Anakin's just still developing as a character, and it's just purely based on the events he has to go through, and there's nothing there. Whereas you bring up stuff like Obi-Wan, it has this kind of already set up history having to deal with war now. And arguably, when Obi-Wan, before he kills Maul, he's not really special. Like, he's not like a special kid or something like that, like Anakin is. He's just another Jedi Padawan.
But yeah, and he defeated the first Sith in like 100 years or something,
And that changes his whole
or
status.
whatever. Yeah, and it also, I mean, Obi
I
Wan
think
is
that
Obi Wan is special just because he's a good Jedi. Like he not good, he was a great Jedi. Like it wasn't just like some run of the mill Jedi. Like if he was a run of the mill Jedi, he would have died earlier. Like after that battle.
Well, I think it's more like less like battle skill and stuff. I think he's definitely like a very good Jedi because he's very by the book to me. Like at the end of the day, the Jedi code is what he sticks to, and that makes him a good Jedi.
Yeah. He
But
defeats Maul. He defeats Grievous, who
I think
Grievous has
before that
slain
though,
a
what I'm
lot of
saying is
Jedi.
like
Oh well, yeah.
the the well, what I was saying is like the movies go, okay, Anakin, we're gonna deal with Anakin because he's like the chosen one, and how is he dealing with being the chosen one? And like he
Yeah.
is told he's special. I think like having Obi-Wan have to go from you're just a Jedi, dude. Like you're not unspecial. Like, you're not boring, but you're just another Jedi as far as I think goes. Oh, you killed the first Sith in 1,000 years. You're suddenly like a big deal, and people are like looking at you for things. And your master died. So like taking all of that and putting it together, it's kind of like you lost your master, and then everyone is like, dude, you're so badass because you killed the first Sith. And it's like, you're hung up on the first part of that. Like, I killed this Sith. I didn't think of it as killing the Sith. I thought of it as killing the guy that killed my master. And we don't get that. We just kind of, and like, I think that combined with training the chosen one, it's like, oh man, like propping Obi-Wan up to be like this big deal all of a sudden, and how is he dealing with that, as opposed to like Anakin is the chosen one and he's super special, and he's kind of never not been special even when he was a slave kid, because he still could do all this cool shit that other slave kids couldn't do. So like his character just doesn't change. And I mean, I don't know, it would be interesting to see that, and Clone Wars kind of does that. I feel kind of curious about the latter half of Clone Wars now that we're kind of going back to Mandalore, and I'm getting a little irritated with the Darth Maul's vendetta against Kenobi that only ever comes up when it's convenient.
Yeah, they straight up should not have drawn out the whole Darth Maul thing. I personally am really just as much as I love Darth Maul, I'm so tired of him, dude.
It was great. So, like in our time, I guess not the canonical timeline, it was great until Solo. That's when I was like, this is too much Maul. Because by that point, I've seen how Darth Maul dies. I've seen like all the other cool shit he does with Mandalore. I've seen him get his ass handed to him. I'm cool with it. I don't need any more of it. Like, I feel like he's fine. Even Rebels, I was like, this is surprising, but it's not the worst thing to happen. Like, that's okay. And then he dies at the hands of Kenobi. So it's like, okay, cool. But then Solo was like, oh, by the way, he also was like the leader of this crime syndicate. And I'm like, for why? Like, why does he have to be the one who does it? Like, I don't really care.
It's like, oh, the Crimson Dawn or whatever. It's like, who
Right.
the
And
fuck are the Crimson Dawn? Is it the Mandalorian guys that dress like you? Like,
I
I don't
assume
get it.
yes. Like, I assume it's like some weird criminal outfit based in Mandalore. Like, there's no real description of it, and yet nothing wants to explain it so far.
Exactly.
We all
Like,
just want to start like in the middle of it. And I'm
and
like, well,
here,
where is it coming from?
and here's the. I made this point with Sal last night, and it's really, really bothering me. So, at the end of the Clone Wars season 5,
Mm-hmm.
when Darth Sidious appears on Mandalore and he confronts Darth Maul and Savage Opress, and he kills Savage Opress, and he just fucking kicks Darth Maul's ass,
It's a pretty cool
and
thing.
that's one of the best lightsaber fights ever. And
It was a very good scene. Yeah.
he goes to Darth Maul, he kicks his ass, and he's like, "Well, I don't want to kill you. I got a plan for you." and that's it, and it leaves you there. Well, why the fuck in season 7 is Darth Maul still on Mandalore with all the freedom that he has and is in charge of this huge crime syndicate? Like, what does that do for Palpatine?
Well, I can think of
It
many
doesn't.
things it could do
It,
for him, but
it
it's we're
doesn't.
not being told
Well,
what it
what's
is.
well? That's not a plan for Darth Maul. Like you see in. Granted, I'm not a huge fan of Rebels. It's fine,
Mm,
but I personally am just like I'm over it. I think it's annoying now at this point. I've seen the whole show, and it just it yeah. I'll get that's another discussion we've talked about it before, but
a little bit,
anyways,
yeah.
but you see Darth Maul like guarding this temple. It's like, is that what Palpatine wanted him to do? He just kind of threw him in there and it's like, all
But
right, guard it. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of pointless. It's like you
right.
kick Maul's ass
Well,
and
that's my problem.
you kill his brother or apprentice or whatever you want to call him, and then that's all you see of him until Rebels, and you're like, oh, he's in this temple. But now we're at season 7 of the Clone Wars, and Darth Maul's literally in the same spot with like he had no repercussions from that Darth Sidious fight at all.
Well, and that's the thing that bothers me about it is because it's like we're being shown Darth Maul piecemeal and all unorganized, right? So it made sense when Rebels came out because it was like, okay, you saw Darth Maul get his ass handed to him, and you're just like, he has a plan, and some part of this plan is to do what happens in Rebels. Okay, fine. Like that thread is perfectly fine to me because there's some area in there of like, I don't know what happened in the middle. I don't really care. I don't really need to know. Whatever's going on now is whatever he's doing. Clearly, like by that point, Maul is like on his own doing some shit.
Yeah, he hated the Inquisitors. He killed
Right,
the Inquisitors. He fought like Kanan and Ezra, and
right,
he wanted to get out of the temple. He was tired of being there. He wanted to go find Obi-Wan and kill him. So
right. And
that
that's
was his goal.
that's fine. Like that right there is enough. Like Maul at this point really should have just been kept to the cartoons. But then you like throw him in at the end of Solo. And it's like, okay, so he's running this crime syndicate. Well, he was kind of doing that in Clone Wars, but he wasn't doing that after as far as we know, he wasn't doing that at the fall of the Republic. So what the heck's this?
It's so
Well, we're not told
unorganized.
about it. Well, then it gets one step worse, right? Because now it's like you're still on Mandalore. So I assume that the plan was for you to just rule Mandalore. Like politically, the only thing I could think of is like rule Mandalore from the shadows because the Republic can't, I guess, legally do that, which is fine. But like, what what does it mean? Like, what is that? What are the repercussions of this? And then like, is he ruling them with a crime syndicate? Is the crime syndicate something that like is in the background that he's running? Like, and then yeah, how does this help Palpatine aside from Mandalore's kind of under Palpatine's control, but not, and also the later starship fuel thing can work for the Empire? I don't really understand like what the goal is here, and I kind of almost wish it was like Palpatine just beats the shit out of him and he's like, "You're not even worth my time," and leaves, and just is like, "Fuck off on your little planet. Like, I don't care about it. I'll come back for you later or something." And then let Maul like trying to build up some kind of something to fight the Republic, and then he fails again. Like Maul as a failing character is great because it's just like it's entertaining enough to watch, and it's a bad guy to beat when you can't beat your real bad guy until the movie. But yeah, I think the way
I
it's
like that
delivered
part
is
of him.
so messed up.
I
It's
like
all
that part
pieced
of
up.
him, but he basically he he's an apprentice. He's a Sith assassin essentially in
Mm-hmm.
the Phantom Menace, and he does what he needs to, and then he gets defeated. He comes back in the Clone Wars, wants revenge. You see what he's been up to the whole time since Obi-Wan fought him. That's fine. They do a good job of showing him rising to power, taking over Mandalore, and then Sidious basically humbling his ass. And
Yeah.
then that's it. And then you see him in Rebels, and you're like, okay, fine. This is fine. He basically becomes like Gollum of Star Wars, and
No,
it's like
it's a cool
corrupt.
arc.
He's basically like he's going crazy, and he's getting corrupted by his hatred for Obi-Wan. And then now it's kind of just scattered. It's like he's in Rebels, he's in Solo, he's in the Clone Wars again. It's like make up your mind what you want to do with him. Don't just make him this you know, go-to character. You can just throw in whatever you want. Like you can't just do that. Like at least have a purpose for him. Let him either
Hmm.
succeed or fight or fail. You've already shown, and here's the issue: you've already seen him die. You've
Is
already seen
yeah.
you've already seen Ahsoka die and then come back, and you know she lives. So what does this season 7, what weight does this even hold? It holds no weight. There's no point in any of it. You know Ahsoka's going to live. You know Darth Maul's going to live. You know Obi-Wan and Anakin are going to live. You know Rex lives.
Yeah.
So what is there to this?
I
The
think there
clone
is to
troopers?
it.
Who cares about the clone troopers?
Well, half of it to me is just like if you want to make a season 7 and you want to involve Ahsoka, then just show me Ahsoka. Like what I was totally prepared for with this whole season was show me Ahsoka's adventures not as a Jedi and like how she has to work around like when you are a Jedi, you have this code to uphold, right?
Yeah.
How do you balance your own morality with the fact that you don't have to follow that anymore? And like, what do you do when you're presented with situations where it would be against the Jedi code to do this, but I'm not a Jedi anymore. And like you could have dark stories, you could have very interesting, like thoughtful stories. And I think one of the things that the show was doing really well in some of the past seasons is it's like how you say, like, oh, it's for adults. I look at it more as just like it's a very like good show for kids. Most kids aren't as dumb as people like to think they are, especially people who make TV shows and movies. Kids, like when they watch something like that, even if they don't understand it to the same degree that you and I are talking about it, they still feel that. And they sit
Mhm.
there and they look at it and they go, that's really making me think. Even if they're not quite sure what they're thinking about, their question is like, well, wait, why did the good guy do that? Like, why did the good guy kill that guy? Like, that wasn't a good person thing to do. But at the same time, you're questioning, like, why? And you start thinking about it. And this show was a really good place to like have that kind of discussion for a kid, or how to like start that discussion for a kid, because you're watching your heroes from Star Wars perhaps do something that's like morally questionable, and you're giving the reason as they're not a Jedi anymore. So does that make them a bad guy? Does that make them a Sith? Like you're dealing with the question of dichotomy and all this other things. And that was where I was prepared for this season to kind of go. Like with the limited number of episodes, I thought it was going to be pretty much all Ahsoka and just like dealing with not being on Coruscant anymore, being like fucking off to the outer rim or something, and she's just having to deal with the war as a thing, not as a soldier. Like she's dealing with the war as like an event that's going on, and she's just a civilian, not a soldier. And like, what does that look like for somebody who was a Jedi on the front lines? But instead, we're just like, okay, cool. This like thing again that's not really dealing with the Clone Wars with the sisters, and then we're dealing with the like super clones, which is like, well, okay, whatever. And now with the last few episodes, we're presented with that. Yeah, you're not a Jedi, but you're going to be doing Jedi things. But what is that going to look like? Like, is she going to decide to kill Maul? Is it going to obviously not, or she's not going to do it? But it's just a lot of this stuff that they could have really had started a cool discussion with, but chose not to. They chose to make something that again, it's all flash. It's like all the other stuff that Disney's putting out. It's just flashy nothing. It doesn't make you think. It doesn't make you want to think. It doesn't want to make people have discussions like this, except for in light of it.
They
And
think
it's
they're
just
either
there.
they think they're either geniuses or they think that we're stupid.
They
And
think
which
we're
is which is
stupid. They
which is
think we're stupid.
which is so insulting
It
being
is.
such a longtime fan of this franchise and investing so much time into conversations like this and collecting and buying figures and comics and books and getting the DVDs and different versions of the movies and getting the TV show and dressing up like Jedi and stuff on Halloween and at conventions and
Well, it's not even
just
the.
it's just
It's.
everything. It's like you've invested so much of this cool shit into your life,
Mm,
and now the thing that you followed the most, and I can proudly say that I have invested more into Star Wars than I have into Marvel, than I have into Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, which I've
right.
invested a
Yeah.
lot into as well. But it's safe to say Star Wars has been like the number one, like as far as nerdy pop culture geeky stuff that
Hmm.
I'm into. That's the one I've put the most time and love into, and it sucks ass to see them treat us like complete dog shit now after all this time. It's like since when is it okay to treat your fans like they're morons? Like you can't not just, you don't have to tweet at somebody and say something insulting to be insulting to somebody. You can be insulting with your product.
Yeah,
So
no, that's a good
why are
point.
you doing this? Why? Like what are you gaining from it? You're only
They're
hurting your
gaining they're
brand.
gaining our money, man. They're gaining it because they know that people are gonna go see these. It's the same thing with Marvel, and this
I
is
ain't
why I
giving them money.
conflate. But that's the thing is like that's why I conflate Marvel and Star Wars at this point because it's all owned by Disney and they're doing the same formulaic thing as Blair X pointed out. They are just going. We have a fiscal quarter that we have to meet for this movie. I mean, Nine is a great example of it. It's like, oh no, Nine is supposed to come out in this quarter. We need to make that money, so put it out. Well, it's Carrie Fisher died. Like, we really should rewrite the no, 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 no. It needs to come out now. We got to do it. Put it out now, and they
Yeah.
do. And it's a garbage movie because they know that people are going to go see it no matter what. I mean, I went and saw it, and I kind of came out of it going, damn, like that really sucks. That the only criteria we rate movies or that production companies anymore rate and probably always have, but the all we hear anymore is that this movie made X amount of money. Not that the movie was good, not that the movie was bad, not that the movie was like whatever in between, but it made $1 billion. Holy shit. And it's like, that's great, but was it good? I mean, Star Wars Episode 9 was not a good movie. Like, it just wasn't. It probably made a fuck ton of money, but it wasn't a good film. And like, there are other Star Wars movies that are good that maybe made proportionately less than it. So it kind of raises a question like, when are we going to stop looking at financials as the scoring card for a movie? Because like there are Marvel movies that aren't very good, yet they made millions and millions of dollars. And there are other movies that didn't. And I mean, I'm not talking like, oh, some indie movie that's really good and just didn't have the kind of thing like Marvel did. And like, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about like other movies in general. I've liked other movies more than Disney. I mean, shit, animation wise, dude, How to Train Your Dragon is one of the best animated series is whatever you say that word I've ever seen in recent years. I don't think that some of the Disney cartoons that are coming out hold a candle to it, and that's my opinion. But it's just like Disney wins the Oscars anyway because it's Disney. Like I personally liked the third How to Train Your Dragon movie better than the fourth Toy Story. That's me though. But it's just
Oh, hell yeah.
it's
Well,
a thing.
How to Train Your Dragon is one of the rare trilogies, like DreamWorks trilogies you can get. I mean, shit, I think if we're talking story and coherently, like how the characters act and everything
Mm-hmm.
and the progression of all the events and everything, it's a better, it's better DreamWorks movies than Shrek.
Oh well, yeah, Shrek's not really much of a thing, but I agree with you. Like, and that's a good thing. Is like Shrek made a lot of money. Was Shrek a good movie? It had its moments, but it's not like, oh my god, Shrek! What a piece of artistry! Like,
But
it's
it's like
Shrek.
it goes far and beyond most trilogies though. Like How to Train Your
No, yeah,
Dragon, it's
you're
something
no, I
that
agree.
Star Wars could never do. Why? Because they didn't have people that actually could write this movie that actually you're sticking with Hiccup this whole time and Toothless and
And you're
you're
growing up with them, which is
yeah,
the thing I like the most. Is like these characters by the end of How to Train Your Dragon 3, it's like a beautiful ending where they're adults, they have kids, it's this whole thing. I mean, that was
exactly.
like a tearjerker ending if I ever saw it, but in such like a happy way. And
Yeah.
it's like,
And they're mature about it too. They don't sugarcoat shit in that movie.
no. I mean, there's goofiness, especially on the first one, because it's a kid's movie. And it's the
It
fact that
is.
movies like that, you are looking at it and you're like,
It's a
when
movie
they
for everyone.
do, well, it's that when they do stuff like that, you're reminded this is a kid's movie and you're immediately like, that's okay. Whereas some of this shit that Disney's putting out, it's like with Star Wars is a good example. It's like, is this a kid's movie? Like, I don't know anymore. As you're trying to make something for everybody, but what you wound up with is just a big cacophony and nothing. Like it's like I don't you don't need to make Star Wars only for adults. You don't need to make Star Wars only for kids. But like the first Star Wars came out, it had that little bit of everything for everyone, kid or adult or in between. What's so hard about that now? Like in the sense that like you already have the established stuff. It's not that hard to make a movie where you can get dark or can get funny and like a kid can watch it and be cool with it, an adult can watch it and be cool with it for even different things. Whereas now it's just like, oh, hold on, pump the brakes. Let me put in a stupid joke that like a kid will find funny, but an adult will find not funny or crude at all. But
Exactly.
since it's not a kid movie, you're just kind of like, why the fuck did they do that? As opposed to like, oh, this is a movie for children. I am going to let that slide because, it's a kid movie. Like, why am I going to get mad about a movie that's not for me?
And that's the thing. They pander to all these audiences that could give a less shit about it. Like, do you
Well, it's when
think
you pander to everybody, you pander to nobody. That's the problem, I
bingo?
think.
That
Yeah.
needs to be a t-shirt.
No, I mean that's how I interpret it. Is it's you try to make everybody. It's like in anything. It's whether you're in a job or you're writing something or you're creating anything. It's when you try to make everybody happy. You eventually there's going to be conflicting shit. I mean, Star Wars episodes 8 and 9 are a great example of that. 8 tried to, do this creative thing and it blew up because you made, it's very polarizing. You made like quite literally 50% of the people get super pissed off about it. And then Star Wars episode 9 tried to make everybody happy and then you just kind of made everybody hate it. like um and that's the irony of the whole thing to me is like 8 wasn't great and people didn't like it. And it made at least half the people feel like, that's not my Star Wars. 9 came out and it was so bad that everyone was just like, this movie just kind of sucks.
Yeah, it does.
It's like if there's I think the one thing I heard on a YouTube video maybe was if there's anything that Star Wars fans can agree on, it's that 9 was not a good movie. And like it doesn't matter what you liked before, it's just that 9 sucked because it's a bad movie. Not like 8 where it was like there were flaws with the plot, there were flaws with the canon. 9 is just not a good film. And
I
it's
think
like,
I think me and you will disagree. I think me and you disagree on how bad or good or neutral 8 is. I'm more on the side of it's one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever seen in my life. Same with The Rise of Skywalker, though. It's in the same
mhm.
boat. I hate The Force Awakens, but it's it's not as bad as the other ones, even though it's still a piece of shit movie.
Yeah.
But it's safe to say 8 and 9 can go fuck off. Like they're useless movies in my life. Who cares? They have no overall positive emotional value to me. Or I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I would
there's
agree.
there's no nothing that is in my heart for those movies. But that's that's the route they're going with Star Wars and with with the Clone Wars. It was something I think it's safe to say everyone was excited for it. And
Oh, yeah.
I've been seeing nothing but people go, "Man, it's been a letdown." And I'm like, "Yeah."
Well, and this is the
Not that
problem
I
with take
was not that I was so excited for it cuz I was already prepared for a dog shit movie or a dog shit like season just because I know who's in charge in Lucasfilm over there and I know
yeah.
who's doing this shit. So I knew what to expect. I didn't expect a good season like the other
Mhm.
previous 6 ones, but it really is disappointing. Like it's like, damn, they cannot get anything right. It's
Oh, I
bad.
absolutely agree.
It's like, damn, like you've had all of these chances to do amazing jobs at stuff. And the only things that have really struck positively with the fans are what? A TV show that has one season and one video game out of the 3 that you've made in 8 years? Got it. It's like, damn, you guys could not be further from what the fans want. That's embarrassing.
Well, and it's just, yeah, there's so much like not. You're right. One video, as far as the new stuff goes, you have one TV show and one video game that are like categorical hits. Like there are, at least as far as I can tell, there's nobody who really dislikes them. And it's like, that's something to be proud of, but that should also be like a sign that maybe that's the direction you need to start going. Look at what people liked about those two things and start. I mean, they already did it with Marvel. They already started making a formula out of it. What's so damn hard about doing that again? Or taking at least that kind of assessment and doing what did they like about this? Oh, well, they like this, that, and the other thing. Well, why don't we just like do some more of that And then, you're going to find, oh, people liked that it was different. They liked that it was creative, but at the same time, it gave that feeling where you're still doing what you remember, the nostalgia effect and all that stuff. I feel like at this point it's not that hard to recapture. Like when you're trying to be so different, there's a scale. You can't be too different, but people want you to be different because they want to see something they haven't seen 60 times already.
It's a matter of planning
Mhm.
accordingly, being creative, and being artistic about it. I
Yeah.
mean, overall, it's art. So you have to
That's a
have
big
that
thing,
you
yeah.
have to have that you have to have that, you know, that creativity to what makes everything special about Star Wars. You don't just make a fucking Lord of the Rings movie and then go, "You know what? This guy has laser vision now." He's like, "What? What? What?
Yeah.
What? What are you talking about?" And his horse makes tea. Excuse me. Like, never mind. It has a
Just
bowcaster
start
now. Like, I'm confused now. What are you doing? Like, you can't just be so out there and be like, it has nothing to do at all with the fucking lore in the world that it's in. There's no
Mhm.
creativity to it. It's just a bunch of nonsense that you thought would be funny. You're shoehorning it in there, and you're bringing the whole franchise down. And essentially, that's what they're doing. And at this point, Lucasfilm Lucasfilm and Disney have brought down this franchise so much to where if somebody wanted if they wanted to sell it, nobody would buy it. That's
No, I think
personally
that definitely would be people would buy it for the merchandising money. That's it. And I
that's it.
wonder if even then that's enough to break even. But my
No,
thing I think
probably
a lot
not.
of it comes down to like you need to be creative, but it's like what is that cooking show where they is it Chopped where they I don't watch cooking shows much, but there's that one show where it's like you're given these 5 ingredients or something like that and you need to make something out of them and it's like
Iron
funky
Chef?
weird shit. Is it Iron Chef? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I just know there is some cooking show where it does that. But that's a great example of like how these types of franchises need to be approached is like I want you to be creative. Here are the ingredients that you are allowed to work with. Make something new or something cool or something creative out of it. Don't decide, okay, you gave me the ingredients to make like chicken parmesan. I'm going to go to the store and buy what I need to make a cake instead. And it's just like, well, and make it look like chicken parmesan or something. It's like, well, this is a cake. It's like, yeah, I know. It's like, well, this doesn't use anything like I asked you to. Well, yeah, I know. It's different. It's creative. It's cool. It's like, no, you just did something else, which is not, I think they need to approach it like that. You have your world, you have your universe. Play with it, be creative with it. Don't do the same shit over and over and over, but also don't just go, I'm going to rewrite everything because that just seems like you might as well just make a different movie. That's just a waste of time.
I feel like Star Wars overall has been a waste of time over these past 8 years. And
Yeah.
it's sad to say that just because you know how big of fans me and you are, and me and
Mhm.
you have spent a lot of time like growing up as kids, like playing with lightsabers, playing the video games, talking about it in high school and as adults, even now, like we're still talking about it as if we just saw the sequel and or as we're talking about this stuff as if we just saw the prequels and the OT yesterday.
Yeah.
Like we love this stuff. And the fact that me and you feel this way about Star Wars, this should not be happening.
No, I mean
Eh,
it's been however many years of trying to find footing and then didn't find it until The Mandalorian. And by then it's too late. You've lost. I mean, I'll still watch the season two. I'll still watch stuff, but it's like you've
Oh yeah,
lost
for
so
sure.
many other people. Like there are so many people who don't do it anymore. And I mean, I guess all I can really say to those people is like give something like Mandalorian a chance. Like my rule of thumb is, I give the things that they make a chance. Like I give Nine a chance. I give Solo a chance. Did I like him? Eh. And eventually maybe I don't want to give him my money anymore. So that chance doesn't become me going to the theaters and seeing it. It becomes me waiting for it to come out on streaming and then I'll watch it. But it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's like Fallen Order and Mandalorian. You never know when those are gonna think little gems like that are gonna pop up. And maybe if we kind of vote with our wallets here and choose to really or wallets and platforms like this and others to support the ones that we like, then maybe that'll start swaying some of these people to do something more. I don't know. Maybe that's a really it's a really positive way to look at it. And it's probably not going to make a difference, but I don't know. I think social media can be used in a way that we can kind of start voting less with our wallets, even because, you get robbed of things like Fallen Order if you choose to just not support it. And it's like, that's a great game. I had a lot of fun playing that. It's arguably one of the best Star Wars games I've ever played. And it's just like, if I had sworn off everything Star Wars in the beginning, then I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to play that. But at the same time, I want them to know like that was a good game. Battlefront sucks. Like I don't like Battlefront. I like Fallen Order. So it's kind of like things like that, or I liked the old games, like things and whatever. Or with shows and movies, I like Mandalorian. I didn't like Rise of Skywalker. Like I saw both of them, but I can tell you one I didn't like. And I think they need to start paying attention to what people like and not just what people spend money on, because you don't know what you will like until you go spend the money to see it, right?
Yeah. No,
And that's
exactly. I
that's
mean,
the thing.
you don't have to eat up everything that has the word Star Wars on it. You don't
Right.
have to like, shun off, and you don't have to cut ties with everything that has Star Wars on it. But if that's what you want to do, go for it.
Yeah.
But if you want to go watch this movie and then not see that movie, play this game and not that game, that's fine.
There's nothing wrong with that. No.
Yeah, I haven't played Jedi Fallen Order just because I don't know if they did anything that's way out there with as far as how the Force works and
They
how
do it in a way where
the
it's
lore
like
is and how they changed it. That's the thing is like I don't there's no need to change anything and to like make the rules different. Like the whole I just
it's
I'll
the
get into
things
it.
you like about Mandal. Just as we wrap up here, because I got to get going, but
Yeah, me too.
in video game form. It's its own isolated story. It has very little to do with stopping the Empire and shit. It just kind of is its own. And like having a background in archaeology, I'm a little partial to it because it's pretty much like if Indiana Jonesy kind of searching for stuff, but you're Jedi and you're in space, and it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And I don't know. It kind of was like, oh, this is really fun. Like I'm really enjoying this. It's also like I don't feel like anything that happens. I could feel like you could make like 6 of these games and it won't really overlap with the movies. It doesn't screw with canon. It just is a thing, and it's enjoyable. And I think that would be how I'd plug it if you were like, should I play this game? Maybe wait for it to go on sale or something. But yeah, it's there.
I might try it out later on. If it's like super super cheap, then I'll try it out, but I'm not going to be forking out 30-40 bucks for it.
No, I think I got it as a gift, so that's where I ended up with it.
Yeah. But I think we'll end it here. We both got to get going. We both got stuff to do.
Yeah,
So,
lives to live.
that's right. Anybody that listened in today, thank you very much for hanging out with us and tuning in. I want to thank FlareX for talking to us a little bit in the chat. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.
Um, guys, tune in for Goober Brothers Entertainment next week as we're going to have another episode of The Boardroom here on this channel with Etep Wakuma's A Place to Be Reviews and Salvador on 2 Cent Toys. So tune in next week on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and we're going to have another episode of The Boardroom. And also here on Goober, we're going to be doing an episode with my buddy Aaron. He was one of my teammates in college, and he's also a huge Star Wars guy. And we're going to be talking about Battlefront 2. So
The old one or the new one?
the Battlefront 2, the newer one.
Oh, okay. No, I was just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah, yeah. We both play it, and we fucking can't stand it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
It's I play it and I'm good at it, but it's 2 years and they're still not done adding stuff. So it's like you've had 2 years and you're still working on it. It's like you guys gotta stop doing this whole unfinished game releases.
Dude,
It's
I
just
agree.
it's terrible. So we're gonna be doing an analysis of that and break down each part of
Mhm.
what's bad, what's good, and overall why Lucasfilm and EA need to just not do any more Star Wars video games. I mean, maybe
Mm.
Jedi Fallen Order is good enough to make a sequel. I don't
I
know. Is it?
definitely say like check out Fallen Order if you can between now and then and see if your tune changes. Because I used to think the same thing, and then I played that, and I beat it in like a week because I just couldn't put it down.
Oh, that's
But
cool.
anyway, yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, hey, I mean, I appreciate your take on that. I mean, it's cool hearing about stuff like that that I personally haven't played. So,
Hmm.
but
No, it's
ladies and
definitely super
gentlemen,
fun.
make sure you check out So What Happens Next on Apple Podcasts. Check them out on Spotify. Check out their
Yeah,
website and listen to a couple of their shows, man. They're really, really good. And if you
thanks.
want a good insight on certain movies and good analysis and everything, check them out.
Yeah,
Thomas,
we do. We got a episode coming out Monday. We're actually taking kind of a bit of a left turn on stuff, and we're doing our first animated movie. We're doing Paprika. It's an anime from like 2006. It's basically like what I assume Inception drew a lot of inspiration from. It's like Inception, but if it was on math, that movie's nuts. But it's really good, and we have a really. It was. I highly suggest it. And spoilers for the episode. It's a pretty good movie.
oh,
You
cool.
should definitely check it out. But yeah, it's a fun episode. That'll drop on Monday. So feel free to check us out on Spotify or Apple or our website, swhn19.com. That's 19 was a number, not as a word. I guess some people think it's a word. And stuff like that. But yeah, everything's there. And follow us on Facebook and wherever else you partake of social media. But yeah, so that's what's coming down the pipeline from us. And thanks for having me on the show, man.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, man. You're always welcome.
Thanks.
Um, everybody check out So What Happens Next. And like I said earlier, tune in to Goober Brothers Entertainment. We're going to be having some stuff coming up. But in the meantime, y'all take care. Thank you for hanging out with us today and have a great day. Later.
Bye, everybody.